Wholeness Tribe, we're about to get started here in just a moment. We're going to get things started. We're going to be broadcasting live on YouTube tonight to share some love with the YouTube family. We have quite a progression to get through this evening. And let me just take a moment and make sure that this pushes live. Okay, there it goes. There it goes. All right. Wholeness Tribe, we're about to get started. All right, so let me go ahead and remove that so we don't have any reverb. Wholeness Tribe, we're about to get started here and just remove that. Okay. I've cooked one up for myself this evening, and I have the tribe with me. I first wanted to say again, wholeness and balance vibrations to everyone out there. This is an honor and a true opportunity to be here this evening in front of everyone. We're just getting started. We're going to let this breathe for a moment because it does take some time for us all to get in on this special build that we have this evening. So we want to give it time to breathe. As I mentioned, we want to get some Palo Santo and some sage in the field if you have it. And what we're going to do while you're getting things together is we're going to go ahead and take a moment and let everyone touch and connect first verbally by just stating where they are, saying wholeness to the tribe, and letting us know where you at. So wholeness and balance vibrations. I'm Sevan Bomar, and I'm here in Costa Rica, and I'm getting ready for a big train to come through, and I'm going to be on it. Wholeness.
Wholeness family. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I'm in Central Park sliding under the door, and I'll be home shortly.
Wholeness Dominic, this is Nadej. I'm in Costa Rica right now. Sending wholeness vibe.
Okay, we can't do it like that. Come on now. I mean, if y'all can't bring it, it does make it tougher on me. I'm still gonna bring it, but come on, it's Friday, it's full moon. Are y'all feeling like me? I mean, let's go. Wholeness and balance.
Wholeness 7. I didn't acknowledge you on the wholeness. What's good? I'm in New York. I'm back at it.
Wholeness Tribe.
Wholeness
Pluto from San Diego. Welcome to Now.
Wholeness Pluto. This is Chrissy in East LA.
Wholeness Tribe is Latoya from Virginia Beach.
Wholeness Latoya. This is Billy in Miami. Wholeness and balance vibrations family.
Wholeness.
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 Wholeness family, Carol from Michigan.
Wholeness Carol, Wholeness Tribe, this is Slim from Nashville, Tennessee.
Wholeness Slim, Abby in Pensacola. Wholeness everyone.
Wholeness Abby.
Go ahead.
Wholeness Tribe, thank you. Veronica in Los Angeles, California.
Wholeness Veronica, this is Melissa from ATL.
Wholeness Melissa. This is Ann in San Diego. Wholeness Tribe.
Wholeness and Jeremy. This is Destin, Port Jervis, New York. Much love.
What's up, fam?
Wholeness Destin, this is Alex in Miami, Florida.
Wholeness Alex, it's Giovanni from North Carolina.
Wholeness, this is Toto from Maryland.
San Diego. Wholeness Tribe.
Wholeness, this is Randy Daggy from Washington State, on this world, but not of it.
Wholeness, Randy. This is Xavier from Miami.
Wholeness, Xavier. This is Chi from California.
Wholeness, this is Nathaniel in Costa Rica. Wholeness.
Wholeness Tribe, Nathaniel. This is Harold from Los Angeles.
Wholeness Harold is Aisha, North Carolina.
Wholeness Aisha, Wholeness Tribe. This is Shucks out in Tokyo, Japan.
Wholeness Shucks, this is Rukia in St. Louis.
Wholeness Rukia, Wholeness Tribe. This is Heno
Wholeness,
from
Heno.
Mountain, Georgia. Wholeness Johnny.
Wholeness Johnny. This is Johnny as well from South Carolina.
Wholeness Jonathan. This is Roxanne from San Luis Obispo, California.
Wholeness Roxanne. This is Cassandra from Aurora, Colorado. Wholeness Tribe.
Wholeness Cassandra. This is Will from Jersey.
Wholeness Will. This is Soraya in Scotland. Wholeness family.
Wholeness Soraya. This is Fifi in Farmersville, Texas. Wholeness.
Wholeness Fifi. This is Kwanda in Nashville, Tennessee.
Sammy, does your shirt say Destin?
Yes, it does, Andrew. This is Sammy from Texas. Wholeness fam.
Wholeness.
We got
Captain,
two more
Captain,
minutes.
come
Let's
in.
go.
I think we're ready, Captain. Captain, come in.
2 more minutes and we taking off. Hurry up and get your fuses lodged together. Put your seatbelt on if you need it. If you just come jumping in, get your Palo Santo, get your sage together. We got about 2 more minutes, 1 more minute and a half. I wanted to say wholeness to this tribe. Today was extreme for me to be able to put this together. There was so many things I had to go through internally. And in the end of putting my notes together, I realized there was so much power to us just being here and us just accepting who we are. So I'm gonna give it 1 more minute and we're gonna go ahead and go into the deepest aspects of self. Thank you so much for joining. If you're in there, there's some that are out there, but if you're in there and you just wanted to make sure that that vibration come across this frequency by saying wholeness this final time, because you didn't get your chance to, this is, I'm talking to you. This is a moment in history that never repeat itself. This is the uniqueness, her story. Also, you know, you got to really put the addendums in there. This is a moment in history and her story that will not be replicated. So if you wanted to just, you know, say something and have your vibration going across this, that would be a good idea. Wholeness.
Wholeness. This is Michael from West Palm Beach, Florida. Wholeness Tribe.
Wholeness, Michael. This is Michael from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Wholeness. This is Ronald, Maryland.
Wholeness and balanced vibrations. This is Galana Israel from Baltimore, Maryland.
Wholeness, Galana.
Wholeness.
This is Julianne from Texas.
Wholeness, Julianne. This is Nidhi from Toronto.
Wholeness, Nidhi. This is Courtney from New York.
Wholeness family. This is Sevan from Belgium.
And just like that, the door shut and we off this thing. Let's go. Let me go ahead and hit these lines. Let me go ahead and get this mute button happening because I'm about to burst out of this seat. And so how can I express through English what is going on in this space and in this time to beings that I truly am connected to and truly am appreciative to be around and in so much love with, is the highest power. And for all of those that have had the opportunity to enjoy that, we salute you. For those pillars that are out there holding space, you may be silent, but you are felt. I'm going to get into something tonight that even when putting the notes together, I've never had this happen. The notes just scrambled themselves. And I was like, hold on, don't do this to me. I've already sent the video out. I already know what I was going to talk about. I talked about this 3 times already, warming up for this with some of my closer folks, what's happening. And some transmissions was coming through, and I was putting those transmissions in there. I was like, man, come on. It's almost like it feels like this is coming from a different space time. And it's like, well, no, it's just because things happen almost simultaneously. And there's a slight variant. So it could get a little confusing if you don't know where that variant is. And I said, so where does this confusion come from? Why do we have so much confusion and conflict? Because that was actually the core of the build. And it was manifesting itself within the actual knowledge itself, just to cry out, to say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. I need your help. So I want to take this time to touch and agree, because this is sky high. This is big 5 at this point. This is touching and agreeing. This is the universal symbol of the notion that we are everlasting, that we have something, even though we have our imperfections and we have our mistakes, that we still are made of something that in the end, which is but the beginning, it will come through for us. And if we can continuously stay immune to the buffoonery and the distortion and the division, we got this. And it does start with the being accepting that everything is a part of their creation. There's no part of it that is not. There's no part that can be excluded. So as a parent, it's necessary that you go in on the children. So I just wanted to touch and agree for this moment and say, sometimes even the elders become children, if you notice the process. And so this means that we have to consistently be here for everyone. Now, the reason why we touch and agree is because we know that in infinite space and existence, from time to time, you may need that spin really briefly on your perpetual quantum system. You may need some love, some honor, some cherishment, some riches, whatever that you prefer. And what we're saying is because we have the entire spectrum here, the cosmos here in this tribe, that we have it and it's inexhaustible. That is what you accomplish when you put the total spectrum together. There is no scarcity. Now, this is not the only one of these. There are multiple of these open for those who find themselves in infinite, needing to touch back and connect with the tribe. So I got to go right into this. And the reason why I put the adept level or adept only on this is because, because there was already 2 thumbs down. So I was like, shit, they didn't like that. Let's keep going. Here we go. It's like, we didn't even broadcast. It was like 2 thumbs down. I was like, okay, here we go. Let's go. And I put a depth level because you would need some foundation on this one. You would need to know a couple of things, but more importantly, you would just need to have the experiences of life and know what you're really looking at. Just like you could be in the dream, right? And a dream be so crazy. Like, wow, I was in this dream last night and I can't even go in. Like, I don't even talk to people about my dreams anymore, because that's the first way they just lose. They're like, man, I don't believe you. I don't talk about the dreams anymore, right? I just, it felt this way. But wow. And if you were trying to make sense of that, how could you make sense of that? But yet and still, we know that that is a real world. There is something going on there. And so too, just how your dream can be unintelligible for you, your waking state, you're more aware. You have reason. You know what's kind of happening and going on. And then even beyond that, imagine a few layers up, even what everybody is griping and complaining about and having issues with down here, it doesn't even touch. It doesn't even fade. It's almost like when something happens to you and it's not a big deal and you just go on, while that same thing could happen to somebody else and they would just completely melt down. There's degrees to this. And what we're learning now is we're learning how to see that within ourselves. And if we look outside, we know that we're only seeing reflections through the mirror of ourselves. We don't get caught up in the projection, start giving names to the projection as if it's something different, trying to command the projection, tell it to do something else and all that kind of stuff. We know that that goes on from within. So the reason why this arcana, this secret knowledge, which is protecting itself, has always been that way is because it challenges the person to the maximum. All is self. All is self. Basically, all is self. Everything around you is you. And your visit here is however long it takes you to figure that out, because that's what powers this, that ping to ping networking system of confirmation. It's called communication. Communication, even when they're building it artificially, is just to keep information in different places so that it can always be retrieved. So if the information is in a wheel, someone can always reach the front end of the wheel and start getting the information all over again, while someone else may be in the middle of it getting the information there. And then others can ping all of the information from their own perspectives in different parts of time and space. And they could all be doing that simultaneously. See what I mean? So the communication system, or the wheel, is a very, very powerful thing. It's actually, if we want to understand the first part to what is going on here on the highest level, what this is going to be about first is knowing how the spiritual world functions. Because when you know how the spiritual world functions, all the other worlds are trickled down from that. So they function now, they not only can be controlled that way, but they always, if they come offline, they express the entropy of the original design. So let me just explain that. Let me get this simple, because tonight is some very, very deep stuff, but I want to make it simple. And I'm going to do that actually by making sure I stay on my notes, because in this, I have to have my rigging. And I also will ask the pillars that are present in the space to keep taking breaths, because it's like, it's a labor. It is really a labor. It's a labor of love, but the mother has the labor of love too, and she goes through pain. So anytime something's coming forth from the womb and it's huge, you know, the best thing you could do is hold a hand, put some salt water, some lodestones, and go grab a couple dolphins. Do something to ease the pain. Don't just be sitting back there watching. You know how they say the modern male, he'll sit back there and the whole thing's going on. And he's like, right? But the divine masculine, you know, it's an awareness, and it's a action. Like, okay, let me get into action. I'm not just standing here watching and letting somebody else do it, letting some other person in the white coat operate. I'm in here, you know, I'm holding a hand, I'm sending vibrations, I'm lighting candles, I'm doing whatever. You see what I mean? So this is where we're at with this. It's like, it's not, let me sit down and let me see what he got to say. And if I believe it. And meanwhile, pretty much the world is on its last leg if it doesn't get regenerated. And so that's also somewhat our condition. If we don't get regenerated, then we'd be on our last leg. Whether it happens now or whether it happens in 50 years, there's this regeneration that needs to happen. And so it makes it not somebody else's responsibility, really. It makes it our responsibility to be able to receive it and to be able to bring it in. And that's what also keeps even the channel itself. If you want to say it's a medium, it ain't none of that, oh, let's grab on this Ouija board and all that. No, it's the collective consciousness. If we can move through one voice for one moment to listen to ourselves, what would it say? And what condition will we need to be in order to receive it and to comprehend it? That's the mood. That's why I'm saying it's a depth level, because in mature people, they don't get it. I'm sure, man, some of them probably going nuts in the chat right now. I'm not even looking at the chat. I'm telling the moderators also, while I'm building in all this, this is going to be recorded. It's recorded now. It's important that you watch what's going through that chat. I love to share with YouTube. I don't want to disable the comments. That would be ridiculous. But still, you know, just making sure that you're seeing what's happening there to make sure everybody's having a pleasant journey. Also, I will tell you, if you're in the chat and you're going ham, you need to be thinking about your soul. Like, it's very hard for me to type and listen and chew bubblegum at the same time. I need to choose one or the other, because those are conduits of energy. So I will tell you, definitely share love, represent. But if you're just going crazy and then when he's going to ask my question, blah, 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 it's probably going to happen to you. And I'm giving permission for that to happen over there to the moderator. So I want to make sure we have that addendum, because this is a leap. You know how they call it the leap of faith? The leap is that basically, like I said, again, even the stuff that beings are complaining about here right now, these beings, you, me, the chimeras are complaining about, it's not even concerning on the higher levels. This is like petty stuff. This is like you trying to figure out what your pet hamsters are up to and how they're living their life and putting yourself into the dynamic of the pet hamster. And what I mean by that is that the level of reason is constantly increased within the magnitude of the soul. So generally, the larger the life form gets, added on to a few other designs, a few other geometries, the more aware they actually are. So you can think for one moment just the level that a whale is really on. And then when you even start talking about stuff to the whale, about stuff going on land, the whale's like, I don't intermingle in the affairs. This is more of the energy that you get. Those affairs, I don't mingle in. See, some people then wonder, it's like, well, what's happening? Who's going to come here and help us? I mean, who can help us? Can the constellation Cetus do it? And Cetus is in the ocean. There's all those beings are in the ocean. They're like, we're not meddling in the affairs of the beings on the land. That's on them because of their own tribes, their own nations, and who they elected over them. Because the ones we elect over us are the ones that are speaking for us until we can speak for ourselves. And that's the ancient culture. That's what all of that is really about. It's about knowing that there's always got to be some beings that are really in tune with being in that arbitrary point in between both worlds to be able to still communicate with the beings that are there, which we're going to be talking about this evening, while still being able to translate that message to the beings that are here. Symbolically, that's called the red, the white, and the blue. You ever heard that before? The blue blood, the red bloods, and then the white, who is the mediator between the blue bloods and the red bloods, the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to get so deep tonight, you're going to even see why the whole dog thing is represented by the Crips, Snoop Dogg. All of this is just going to be like, whoa, it's everywhere. How did I not see it? And it's because, how do you see something that you don't know? Your consciousness even tunes out things that are right there, but you are not seeing them, but they're there. Like even when lightning strikes, boom, in a certain spot, something was going on in the field that you couldn't see that was going on there, that was going on. The microscope, underneath the microscope, there's something happening in there. You cannot even see that. They on the desk right now. So these are the maxims or the templates that we need to operate by so that we can be able to check ourselves from time to time and be like, let me adjust and let me calibrate myself. So these are then the steps of the path to find the truth. And the reason why we're doing that is because we know that when we set out on a journey, we still do need to come home at some point. We need to know how to get home. And so many are out on these different paths. That's literally what they're called. It's like a wilderness, and they've lost their way. They don't know really how to get back home. It's like they're in a maze, right? They're so shocked. They're using so much of their energies and frequencies inside of the projection that they're in. They're amazed that they're in a maze. And when it comes time to get out, they'll be like, man, I thought the door was right there. That's the same thing as sometimes in life, you think that you could have done certain things and it was going to all turn around for you when you got ready. And then you finally got ready and you did it and it didn't even work. So this is real deal stuff. And that's why it's like maturity, adult, adept, because it's the being that's saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm really needing to understand what comes next, because I also have children that I'm here protecting too. And I need to know what's going on. I need that foreknowledge. Can spiritual powers, this is the big question, can spiritual powers be accumulated and utilized in a way to fight this beast that we're dealing with right now? This thing that's happening in the world that everybody's experiencing, can spiritual power be the only thing that can actually stand not only against, but actually overthrow something like that? Simple answer is yes. And the only thing. So this is what we're talking about this evening, is the only thing, the power that allows one to actually be able to do what they need to do in this space, to not only protect, but also continue to enhance who they are and those that they're responsible for. And actually, it's all of our responsibility to do this for everyone. The power of a timeless being is patience. Patience is nothing to a timeless being. It's the same thing I was telling you earlier. There's things like on another level, everybody over here, oh, my time. And they're looking at, you're coming to them according to how time works. So they're not looking on at you wondering what's wondering. They're like, we know he's going to be here in 15 parsecs, 523. It's all movement. It's space and time calculation, if you want to call it. But our applications for that here are almost nil. We're consumed with the conflict, right? So we have to, for this being an entry level to understanding self, we have to actually begin to decipher where these conflicts are coming from. That way we don't move too far ahead. Because if we move far ahead and then you hear something that throws you into conflict, and because I failed to give you the addendum about where conflict comes from, that's improper instruction. You see, I mean, that's like telling somebody, hey, go left. And then when they leave, you be like, oh shit, he was supposed to go right. You see what I mean? He'll figure it out. This is what it's like at times dealing with the spiritual teachers on the internet and what they're talking about and what they're saying. As I said before, with a dream, man, we be dreaming fanciful stuff. So if you come here in the world and start talking about your dream, it'll sound fanciful, but is it really true? How do we check back how that dream checks out with the big picture? And now you realize why the big picture is so important. So the big picture, let's say, for instance, when it's flipped upside down and turned right side up, is what you're seeing in the cosmos right now, what you're calling the stars, right? And then in the big picture, what you're noticing is that the damn big picture is turning. It's gyrating. It's in a spiral. And then as just a simple engineer, you learn that if you can somehow tie your picture into the big picture, it would at least move for however long that has been moving. That is the highest level of power here, to be able to make as above, so below. But it's something that you have to do. To do that internally, to basically hook your network up with the main network like a cog or a clock. That's what the Star David is. It's a cog. And in that cog, the same thing like on a wheel on a car, what is a wheel held down with? Nuts. What are the shape of those nuts? Hexagrams. Why? Because that is a cog. That's known as a cog esoterically. And so as a clock, let's say if I built a cog that was perfectly tuned with the teeth of the wheels in your body, and I dropped it inside of you and connected you to the cosmos, you would then exist as long as the cosmos exists. For better, or what they say, for worse. It would either be courses, which you would be learning something, or it would be curses, where you would just get so tired of going in the loop, you would go psycho. Then you would even get into mania, and then even come back again. And all these energies being able to be heated up and cooled down by the elementary forces that are working with you and against you. Because this is what we call binary. This is a binary projection in the aspect of how we're seeing it when we're talking about good or bad. When we talk about good or bad, we enter what's called digitaria. It's Sirius B. I'm not sure how they're missing this. Sirius B, the stars you can't see, the hidden one, the unseen one. Right? And so this Sirius B is also known as digitaria, which is actually the symbol of grain. Okay, so the symbol of grain, it being digitaria, means that it's spewing out seeds. This one's delivering seeds, but what's coming forth from those seeds? This is how we begin to examine Earth, which has been very fertile with these seeds. Earth is an urn. That's why it starts with you. So all the seeds are just pouring into Earth. But what kind of seeds are these? Not all these seeds are the same. You got different trees and stuff. What kind of seeds are these? So this is what we're dealing with tonight. So making sure I stay on point here, looking good. So those pieces then to how you would align your clock with the cosmos, because I'm talking about big scale stuff. I'm not talking about your small time thing. We're talking about big scale stuff. Now you're responsible for tying the entire tribe and making sure that they're connected to the cosmos so that they keep and stay in the infinite spin. So your nation maintains itself infinitely, right? And keeps increasing in reason and awareness, right? How do you do that? So look at this then. Instead of understanding that as like, oh, well, you do it like this, because surely it wouldn't be, surely it wouldn't be that simple. A fool would then be able to take it apart. There would need to be some wisdom to it. And so what it talks about is it talks about what we call today principalities, rulers, and dominions, right? These words are very loose in English. It could literally be Ophanim, Aphanim, Chiahath, Quadash, Aralim, Irims, Jinn, Gehenna, all of these different types. Like if you really wanted to go to the spirituality dictionary and see the hierarchy of entities, right? But if you wanted to put them in simple categories, you could say the principalities and the rulers and the dominion are the parts to the cogs on the wheels that determine if this thing can get in groove with the grand projection. Now, even things like gravity, things like, why the heart is sloped down, right? Because it's succumbing to gravity. The reason why you do see that there is something that's a little off kilter. That's what the spiral actually is when something is a little off kilter and is causing a wobble. And again, to frequency and to things that even have the opportunity to stand up, which is called standing on one leg, to stand up completely and spiral infinitely. Being on a wobble is like, you got a very fast car, but somehow one of your wheels are not balanced. And now you got to take the moment, stop the car, get on the wheel and balance it. And that's what I mean by being a mediator, because this is all going on in the wheel of your mind. So if you have lots of conflicts going on in your mind because of arcane entities, principalities, rulers and dominions, this means things that we're made out of. You have had conflicts before. You've thought about, taking over things yourself. You've succumbed to someone else's tyranny. So all of that energy moving around, that's the principalities, but they're very real though. It's not just you thinking them up. In fact, what they are is a part of the information stream. And as long as somebody is thinking them, they always exist. There are things that we'll never be able to get rid of, which is the ancient origin story, because it happened in the time where what affects everything was present. When something is around, when something that affects everything is present, it will always be. So that's why the work that we have to do, hopefully it gets fun soon, but the work that we have to actually do here on the planet, what we're going to be digging into today, the reason why it's not going to be so comfortable to just point the finger and say, oh, well, yeah, that's who's responsible. I knew it. And then whatever race you can put in there, them folks, I knew. See, because most beings that are in the extrospection instead of the introspection, they're just trying to find who to blame, right? And masters, if they're doing that, they're just trying to find the mirror because they lost it in themselves and they're trying to find where that exists within them so they can actually identify it again and then go eliminate it or balance it out. That's really what balance it out, because there's no elimination. So here it is. The conflicts and the confusions of Chimera. You can type that as the notes of the intro segment of this part right here. What we are seeing here is probably the only surviving image of Amma, also known sometimes as the Jackal, also known as Thoth, Hermes, and quite a few others, even Hecate. Like any name it can get, because it created all of the languages and it created all the words on this dimension and plane that we're using right now. And when you're understanding the Chimera, and again, this is not who you're going to go find because you're actually sitting inside of it already. In a Chimera, you can see how it's important to keep everybody in order and in alignment with each other. It's important to talk to the head and to talk to the feet and to talk to the arms, and because every single part of it is a real living being and has a different use. So the difference, because of the different use, makes it actually just be different. But you know what happens when you put different things together? Kind of two things happen. You know, maybe something that's a combination of both of them can be created, but generally that doesn't come without any conflict. So when even the male and the female get together and do the Big Bang, there's a conflict there and a generation of energy, but it's turned in a specific direction, which is towards bliss. It's not an orgasm or orgasmic flow. It's not turned into destructive and hatred, because, you know, most wouldn't be able to get turned on by something like that. So we're still realizing, though, that since there's a total communion going on, because there's multiple beings inside of this one chimera, if someone gets off balance or something gets off balance and starts dominating the other things, it produces a war. And I'm here to tell you that this war is going on in the mind. And now all of the characters, we've literally manifested the characters externally, so they're in our space. And we'll see ourselves, when reading ancient knowledge, be like, yo, that's going on to me. Those are the same numbers. That's my birthday. And then you'll feel like this story is trying to tell me something. And it is. But it's trying to tell you something about yourself, not about these things outside of you. And I've done a lot of fun with expressing that to Tribe over the last 11 years. Like showing how to demystify and dissolve something. You can work with the most potent elements if you know how to dissolve, even how to dilute, how to contain. It's all alchemy. So even the situation that we're in, that's why I was saying, anything outside of this herm, which is a hermet, like they call it, hermetically sealed, this vessel, the same reason why you can't just puncture skin and then leave the blood open, it's going to get infected. So anything that is outside of this is subject to, it's like, man, that's not even really affecting me. So you have to be the one here, like, I need to bring that energy of myself into the space through myself. That's your power. You have a portal within you that you can bring things out. So you don't got to really deal with the other system that tries to take things from the outside and bring it in. Okay. So watch how this works. So we're saying then, why are we always fighting? What are the origins of that? And we've identified that origin comes from just this as core knowledge within itself. We spoke on this before, the crown of the Magi. This is just the awareness that it takes 4 elements to start the wheel turning inside of these kind of constructs that we're in. And through the movement of the heat and the dampness and the wetness, that's why they're searching for water, searching for life. Your life is going to be created. It's going to come out of what you would say is thin air or nowhere, but life is always around. But because of how life works, as we see with elements, fire, earth, wind, water, these elements are, and of course, especially when it gets into the 5 elements and you begin to add wood and things, these elements, some of them complement each other while others completely obliterate the other, right? So it's like playing rock, paper, scissors with the elements. So you can imagine then that if something starts happening and we start producing and a lot of these different elements are beginning to mix into our blood and nobody has done the alchemical work, man, you can send things into disarray. Okay, let me see. Make the screen bigger on YouTube. Let me see. All right, so let me see what's going on that. All right, give me 1 second, everyone. We good. We glad and we give thanks that we have some that are in the studio, because this is a little bit early on the thing. So hold on real quick. Let me go ahead and look at it and see if it's working. Again, there's no such thing as time. Man, you can send things into disarray. Okay, so give me 1 quick second. I'm catching the lag right now real quick. I just need to check the sound and then check the picture. We're just checking over on YouTube, making sure stuff is going great. I heard that the picture wasn't as big, so I just spotlighted myself and I'm just going to see if that works. There we go. Boom. Okay, so let me go ahead and stop that. And then I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, this is gonna be amazing. So what's happening then is, just to clarify and make sure that we're not going too fast over anything, is that we get in this mode and we're like, yo, this shit's crazy right now. They doing this and that. They jabbing folks, man. Who's responsible for this? And then there's a lot of people to say who's responsible. It's Fauci. And then this process is pretty much how we start deciphering everything around us. There's a reason for everything, and it's not us, because we're not in control of what's going on. Right? And that's what they call that, the Freudian slip or whatever. That's how you keep, that's a slippery slope, I call it. You just keep doing that. So instead of you realizing that, you take a step and then it appears. You're now waiting for it to appear and then take a step. So you're just one click off in Digitaria. Like instead of your 0 first, you just start off with 1 and then you go to 0 again. And then the ones that know how to operate this phase can phase in and out and nullify many of the rules of what is going on, because it comes first. So you'll learn then how to identify yourself with what comes first. But to identify yourself with what comes first, you would then have to identify yourself with the origin of this. And if the origin of this pissed everybody off at a certain point, or is in the next hate book that you read, you find out that it's the person that's the race that you don't like, or whatever happens, because it's always going to be, it's an algorithm. So every time that pops up and you don't get the opportunity to graduate, it's always because you would be looking for something externally to blame for what's going on, and you would be in that loop. And that thing right there, I don't know. There's some beings that have been here for a while. You can't even count the time, and they've been in that. They get so crazy. They get to a point where they even think that their way of doing it is the right one. We've seen armies of hundreds of thousands of beings thinking that they're doing the right thing by going and clashing right into another group of beings that don't want to do what they say that they're going to, that don't want to do what they say to do. Where does that come from? And so our ancient self knew never to look at the external situation, but to look at the spirits. That each tribe really had a genetic blend of earth, fire, wind, water. A tribe in its purest extent is only one element. And in the process of, because on the bigger level, it's all alchemy. So in the process of mixing those elements, those two forces or two nations have to come together. And if they don't have that mediator or arbitrator in between, they collide. And because we already knew this, because we were alchemists, we were masters at creating the mediator. And the mediator rapidly became, if not was in the beginning, our Kahin, our king or queen, our spokesman, spokeswoman, the Eve angel, the go-between between us and where we're at and the other force that is opposite to us. So in being it and knowing how to utilize it, you had the opportunity to benefit from both forces, which would otherwise never be around each other. They are opposites. Okay, in this case, let's look at a few of these, like from their chorus level. Through the DNA, we would know them as the snake and the mammal. Okay, or the reptile and the mammal. I want to make that very clear, because snake, you know, is another variant of a reptile. A lizard is a variant of a reptile. So I'm talking about reptile and mammal. 1-strand DNA and 2-strand DNA. It's even like, without the mediators coming to mind right away, if you really see these elements, you see that they have personality to them all within their own. Like a reptile has a tendency to be very fiery anyway. It's just the nature. And then for those who know the truth, like the Moroccans knew the truth about jinn, they're in the air. Their whole kingdom is in the air. So how we pass on as a spirit, we be in the air. You're now in a spiritual stage. quote unquote. So that's where they are. But so they're more like air and fire, while the mammal is definitely all about that water life. Most of the big mammals are inside of the ocean. They got milk. They in there keeping warm. They're singing, right? And then we have this final element, this earth, which is a very interesting bond, to be earthbound and to do things on earth and to move horizontal, right? So with this kind of realization of these powers, we come into a strong introspection of exactly how our conflicts come about. And actually, let me finish this. Excuse me. Oof. So the mediation, what you were looking at now, this happens on all levels. When you had what's called Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, you had a symbol that was a bird and you had a snake. And what those two symbols were symbolic to, because still a bird and a snake is still in the same tribe. They're evolutions of one another. We didn't mention the mammal. If you wore the crown with the bird and the snake, it meant that you were basically what is called a demigod. Now, a demigod is anything that is made up of two of the strong arbitrating components. That's all that means. It had nothing to do with Hercules and all that. You know what I mean? It does, but through that decoding, it would be difficult to tell exactly what's being discussed. So the person that is the most balanced between all the forces becomes the mediator, because they're going to be the one that has the connection. So I want to make sure this conversation that we're having is hyperdimensional in respect to that. I have this stuff like lined up in order to explain this. And I was like, man, how can I can't even explain it like this. And I'm seeing why, because I have to tie one thing into another. So just like even today now, we're electing. And let me tell you, we're electing rulers over us. And let me explain where that started, where that came from. Initially in rep, because rep is one strand DNA, so it came first. So this is the republic. So in the republic, you didn't elect the leaders. There in the republic or empire, you don't elect a leader. It's by right. It's like a blood thing. Now, remember, when we say by right, we're talking about R-I-T-E, right. That's where the word favorite comes from. Favor right, meaning love to do rituals, but more specifically, love to do red rituals, because right means red. So what this is a correlation, and it's a hint that this is the red team that loves to do these kind of rites, or the red team is involved in these kind of rites. And in these kind of rites, they bring. Well, let me stay on my notes here. Let me just stay on my notes here. Okay, yeah, I definitely want to stay on my notes there, because I just said I want to make sure it's tied in to realize that. Yeah, let me finish it. In the beginning, and it is tough to do this. It was by right, so one was born into the position. And the reptile, basically, if you want to say it like that, had a monopoly on this. So even when the mammals came into now that projection, they were subject to a non-elected ruler that was always the ruler over them. When in these particular, let's say the mammals, it's important to identify them, who they are on a spiritual level, because when I say mammal, you start thinking of flesh or something made out of flesh. But you're failing maybe then to realize that everything made out of flesh dies and it has a spirit. So when a mammal's spirit dies, it has these horns generally on the top of the head. This has something to do with the Pleiades. And this is why things like goats, things like gazelles, things like cow, oxen, bovid, etc., they're always the chief symbolism around the mammalian cult, or the mammalian priestcraft, if you may. So when the mammalian priestcraft began to groan and complain, because remember, the mammalian priestcraft is what did and still do what they've always been doing, because they're on the ground. So what do? They carry the heavy loads. All these oxen, all these bovid, all these buffalo, they carry the heavy loads. They are big beings. And when I say they're carrying a heavy load, think of spiritually. Don't be thinking about them pulling carts across the earth. Think of their souls being parts of the machination, and they're the bigger part. And they're pulling this load to make sure everything stays connected within the clock. These are what's called watchers. Okay. So they're pieces in a clock. But when they begin to groan and complain, I don't want to go anymore. I need more. We don't want no more elected leader over us. Okay. This is actually captured within the Old Testament, because all of this stuff, you just need to know what it means, but it's all there. It's captured in the Old Testament because the people are like, we don't want this divine right king anymore. We want to elect our own king. So then God, in this case, who you'll see is Thoth and the Jackal, gets pissed and is like, all right, who do you want then? And then they elected Saul over them. Okay. Saul is a code for meaning the ritual itself, because the ritual is done through salt, and the ritual is the covenant. Okay. So basically, to boil that down to simple speak, the people are saying, hey, we want an arbitrator in between us, one that's half us and half you. And we want to elect him into or her or it, because he went. Okay, so also realize here, when we're saying it is half us and half you, what we're really saying on a spiritual level is that it is male and it is female. Okay, because all dualities file down into these same categories. And so it's really saying, hey, we need an androgen, because an androgen, which we still from time to time have some pop up on Earth, meaning you still find double genitalia on certain people that are born, but it's very rare. But our ancestors, they were what's called parthogenic. They were born with double genitalia, if you may, to be able to procreate with themselves. And that's called perfect and immortal. So this particular being, which we're now in, this particular body, suffered the loss of its immortality because in the process of it being generated, it decoupled. And when it decoupled, the being that decoupled, which became known as the Jackal, never completed its process. So it has majority of a masculine side, but it still also has a feminine component. And this is called Hermes, Osiris, and whatever other Messiah you can think of. They're predominantly male, but they got this feminine thing going on. And also, if you know in the mysteries, you'll know it's a hermaphrodite. Okay, so but what this is just to not get lost on characters, is they're saying an Eve angel is now being elected. This is why the Jesus at this point is playing the key fundamental component in the elected ruler of the souls on the planet going nowhere, because it is in itself digital, meaning that it's not real. We know the Christ is within. If you're going to see when somebody unlock this, you're going to know. You see what I mean? When you unlock it, you're going to know. It's not going to be some inanimate statue of a person nah. But again, that foolery will have the person waiting on something that they are and never examining how it is that they need to unlock it. These are the keys to unlock it, because it's locked behind confusion, fear, hatred. It's locked behind everything which you would call quote unquote evil as you look and see the story, because hey, guess what? Gods make mistakes and dogs really do. You can make a mistake. What? The God bleeds? Do you see how we're over here looking for this perfect person? Because that's a part of the code and the program. They're like, man, he's perfect. Whoever is the God is perfect. So what this is subconsciously saying is that God never makes mistakes. And so if you're making mistakes, then subconsciously you think God didn't make you. See, this is a slippery slope. This is why they used to say, don't even listen. Now we've begun to listen already. We start hearing these different words and we know English and all that stuff. Now somebody's got to come in and walk you out of the wilderness. But they did say, our ancestors said, don't even listen. Or don't even look. This is what I used to do, have the evil eye. Don't even look at this thing, because the moment your brain starts to try to comprehend it, you're already inside of it. This is what meditation tries to teach you, is that there's a part that something can happen so fast for one moment, your brain can automatically think about what is going on. And then in a split second later, be dead wrong. Be like, oh, okay, that's really nothing. Like when you think that somebody may slam the door and you think somebody's shooting a gun, boom. And then for a moment, you're like, oh shit, somebody's shooting a gun. And then you're like, oh shit, that's shooting the door. That's because the quickest part of your consciousness is not trained. That is the reptile. It's so fast to boom. And then most of the time, because it's tied into anger, which is fire, it's tied into all of the poisons and things, it's tied into so much of that, you find yourself just in that all the time because it can move so fast. It moves faster than the mammal, but it ain't stronger. So then you find yourself in this situation where you're progressively experiencing being burned up. Hell or Hellas or Hala. Let's take a look at it real quick. Because I did have some notes today. Some images today. Here we are. Where you at? I went to put the images in order. Come on, don't tell me that's the only image. Give me 1 second, family, because yeah, we definitely have some imagery to share with this. I also have some book recommendations. Where you at? Let me just Google this. Just give me a moment to take a breath. Let's all just take a moment to just take a breath and really see ourselves in our highest level of attainment, because finally we're here. But man, what they say, it was a long time coming. I waited for my day though. You know, some people like, man, you really made it, man. You must have made somebody happy. Nah, man, I worked for all of this, but it came though. So let's look at it. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about a dog, and this is what happens why there's this huge disconnect in occultism. Because if I told you that there were dogs flying around in spaceships, you would laugh at me. I would be the mockery of the town. How could I get off a conversation like that? And thus, just in that way, all ancient knowledge is generally hidden, because it's actually the animals and what their story is. And when you're trying to explain that to somebody else that's heavily indoctrinated with Disney, they're laughing at you like, you telling me dogs and spaceships, we had dog face men, whatever. Okay, so you'll miss it then, because it's Canaan, Sirius, Big Five, High Five. Right? It's called, you know how they say, hey, Siri, who are they calling? Sirius, B to be exact. The one who bit the apple, meaning that knows how to do the genetic engineering. Digitaria, masters of Digitaria. Digitaria is also knowing all of the elements and the essence of the things that exist in the binary world and all of their combinations to program. Masters of programming. Okay, so again, we're talking about you, because now you programmed yourself into a mess and you need to program yourself out of it, but you need to be able to see it through a reflection now, so that way you can understand what's going on. The hound is her animal, okay, and her epiphany, because what's going to happen is by the time we're done with this conversation today, it's going to click. But the content itself, the actual data, the information that is being brought to you is so vast. It's like you got to see a series of it, be like, wait a minute, we're seeing that again, but that's in something totally different. Are we talking about the same thing? So it has to click like that. So this is like a poetic adventure. The hound is her animal and her epiphany. So what we're talking about also specifically, so no one gets lost, is remember when I was saying Hermes is a hermaphrodite, Aphrodite. It's a combination between or what they call Hermanubis, a combination between Anubis and Hermes, which is a reference to a dog who's Anubis, a black dog to be specific. So watch how many times that the ancients keep saying this dog, you know, man's best friend, but maybe not woman's. And that's like from an elemental level. You see what I mean? Because it's like, we're talking about elementals. We're talking about principalities. We ain't talking about what's going on in your little city or your little town or whatever, even though that may be the essence of it bleeding off. We need to look at the real thing. So man's best friend, or man, is what we have become here on this planet. So this thing is saying, hey, I'm the best thing you got going over here. And because we're like, well, we're way more smarter than dogs. And you missed that the dog regenerated itself back into a lion because you didn't read the Dogen mysteries. And then you probably, then when you start thinking about maybe yourself on a lion, maybe you'd be like, well, you know, I'm not sure if I'm, because lions are like James Earl Jones kind of lion we talking about. You see what I mean? So there's a strength there. But when we're thinking about a dog, you're like, oh man, a dog. And you start thinking about, you know, the mutt that you saw on the corner. But see, what you need to understand is that that's actually what we're talking about with the DNA, is when the DNA gets mixed, it go from something like a dragon, like horned viper on with the attitude, all the way down to just a little bitty salamander. In the degrees when the wheel begins to turn and the comprehension is being told and gained. You see what I mean? So this is the big stuff, right? This is the reason, like, by the end of this, which is but the beginning of today, you'll know all the stuff then. You're like, again, because I try to do this at every point I come into space, but all the stuff now, everything you see going on, you just will keep seeing it to a point where you're already going to know what's going to happen next. And because you know what happens next, you can control your destiny. And that's how this works. So let's keep going. So this is a female dog we're talking about. That's called a bitch. All right. So let's look and make sure that we understand that there's a reference to a god that is a bitch. Etymological treatise Nakurtu Yashka mentions that Sarama, that Ram is going to be very important here in a moment, RAM, derives her name from her quick movement. Mahadara, a commentator on the Vaishasanyaya Samahita, states that Sarama is she who entertains Rement, the gods. More broadly, Sarama has also come to mean any female dog. There are two epithets in Sarama in the original Rig Veda. Firstly, she is introduced as Supadi, which means having good feet, fair-footed and quick. Remember, Queen Sheba had what was saying as good feet because she had a hoof foot. Fair-footed, Hermes is known to be fair-footed and quick. An epithet only used for Sarama in her text. Her other epithet, Sabaga, the fortunate one, because Mercury is commerce or money. Or the beloved one, because people love money. People love generation, abundance. A common epithet in the Ushas and the Dons. Sarama, other's name is Devashuni, which means the divine bitch, the bitch of the gods. Who would have known? Well, nobody knows when they're always trying to down let's say, different aspects of the divine feminine then, right? You would know nothing about this if it's like, you're just thinking patriarch, right? That's a whole big thing right there. That's a big part of the blindness. Right away, it was like, oh man, it's a man doing it. So you're looking for a man. And I'm talking about what's in you. Listen, the hound is her animal on her epiphany. Dogs were sacrificed to Hecate. In the Hellenistic relief plaques, the goddess is shown accompanied by a hound. The Germanic Hel, Holly, and Hala, this is the root to the word Hollywood, escorts the dead to the other world, which is the West. The sun may rise in the east, but at least it settles in a funny location. And her wolf-like dogs nip the flesh of the corpse, right? So these are hounds. But the thing is that when you're thinking about this is like, okay, what are we talking about here? This sounds like it's getting scary. Until we go back to the Canaanites and we go back to Caleb And we go back to the Bible and we find several references that they're saying, hey, dogs play a bigger role in this than everyone thinks, because then we'll go to Sirius, then we'll go back to Africa again, then we'll go with the dogon. And then we're like, well, why did their name begin with dog and why is God's name backwards dog? Can anyone solve this riddle? Right? So we'll see there's something here. Now, personally, I'm a cat person. I gotta keep it real with you. I'm still going through things, right? So I'm a cat person. So it's going to be really hard for me to think that the dog is playing a major role, even though it's sitting under the Queen's crown in Buckingham Palace right now, right? It's the dog thing. We're missing it. And it's becoming really the missing link, because the dog, or what was known in the symbolism, that's why the ancients depicted it as a dog. That's why the fools got the dog nipping at his legs, because the ancients, they were like, we can't change the symbol for you, but it changed the symbol. Because it's moving through time, it became a snake. It became a fox. Go tell that fox. Remember that statement by the Christos? Go tell that fox. You know how the human brain, the human face is depicted as phi, right? The cuter human, right? The one you think looks the best. He's handsome. She's sexy. It's because they're more on phi. When you look at phi from a digitalization level, when they do face reading and phrase tracking, it looks exactly like a fox. She's foxy. Okay, so the fox, it comes up all the time in the ancient text. So if you don't know these characters, though, when the answer is saying, hey, this is what happened, then you would kind of get lost in the whole thing. So let's finish here. The dog's eminent role in old European religion is shown by its prolific portrayals in marble, rock crystal, and terracotta, by vases in the shape of dogs, by pictorial paintings, sometimes dog sculptures appearing wearing a goddess mask. The dog was one of the most prominent sacrificial victims in association with funerary rites. Leaping or flying in space with upraised tails and ferocious hounds are associated with crescents, caterpillars, and full moons. Now, again, I'm going to give you the references to these two books that I'm going through at the end of this build today. I think I hear some sound, so let me work on my sound real quick. Okay. So we're going to keep going here. So now we understand that there's some type of dog reference here. We're going to keep moving through this and see if we will see this ever again. That's basically what we're doing. So moving through the notes, rewinding for one moment. So now, how many have come from parents where the parents said they made a mistake? Anybody? See, now you're not going to find that it's everybody, but you may find somebody has that story. It goes on. The parents like, man, I shouldn't have had these kids. Man, look how he is. He's badass. He's just like his dad. So do you understand that on a, let's say a couple more levels up, that has happened? Does it seem so off? Since there is an as above, so below connection, that mistakes can be made. And I just want to make sure that that's in play, because when you want to point fingers because you don't want to accept how this is something you're doing or something you had happen to you or a stigma that you're experiencing, you can't clear the space. You can't solve et coagula. You can't remove the clot out of your DNA line. Look at your DNA. It's a spiral, right? But what happens if it starts getting knotted up? And it starts, a Gordian knot is tied and nobody can get the knot out. That means that it becomes a clot and you can't solve the coagulation. You can't make the cosmos inside of yourself move like the circulation of your blood so that you can stay on full spin and stand on one foot, right? Like this is just basically a reference to that being around a being with a high spin and a high magnitude makes you even be like, yo, you got something going on. And it's generally because they've been able to put together again the magnetism, through magnetism, the masculine and the feminine force inside of them. Now, the ancestors wanted to already prove to us that this could be done by showing you multiple examples of chimeras that were operating, like cats, who are half reptile and half mammal. The dog has a circular eye. The snake has the concave eye. Okay. So because of that, that means that the cat's not just it's not a lion. A lion has a circular eye. A lion doesn't have the concave cat eye because, and then who was doing that? The Egyptians. They say, oh, it's the Egyptians. What were they doing? They were showing how they can take two forces that are mortal enemies and put them in the same body together. And you will only get that symbol to know what you're in. And that symbol is the symbol of the Sphinx, which is a chimera. Okay. And then from there, now all the riddles going to start. And if you can't figure that out, you never get out. They really are serious too. They like, we got one problem for you in immortality. And until you solve it in my at, you have a math problem in my at immortality. And until you solve it, you cannot get out. That's like they talk about rites of passage where you will put you in a tank and just start filling the shit up. You're like, I'm going to drown. They're like, we know. Hopefully you could take that thing down and build and bring it back up, because if you're going to stand in this position as the mediator, you have to be able to die. And that's why the sacrifice thing started, that's in the modern times. Now they went nuts off of it. But it meant that whoever was going to be the evangel was actually agreeing to die. To be the mediator, to die is to change your color. To die is to be mixed with another color. So when you would die, it meant that you were going to go be mixed with the other half. And if you could raise yourself again, like Hermes, Christos, Jesus Christ, etc., then you would now be back amongst the living again, but able to actually communicate with what we would call the dead, which is just another realm and another spectrum, a spectrum of what we would say is the shade, right? The shade or the shadows of things, right? So let's keep going with this before people start chasing their tails and their shadows. What happens when you fail? Do you try again? What happens when you make a mistake? Are you doomed for eternity? Are you going to let somebody just write you off forever? And then also, are you going to write something else off forever? Yeah, Hermes is the bad guy. I knew it. Damn dogs. I can't stand no funky dog. This is that. And that right there is, it costs infinity. You could be just on some whole other stuff. Now we're here for our beloved. You can't even enjoy yourself with having folks experiencing this. This is having folks that that you're connected to experiencing this. That's what an avatar is. Avatar be sleep. That's normally in a realm that it is projecting and controlling every single thing in that realm and living in that based on all of what it's learned that it prefers. But then, just like a good dream, you may get woke up like alarms going off. What the hell's going on? Prime, which is where we're keeping all the seeds, the granary, is having a problem, right? And so where's the seed vaults? That's what other planets are. Even the moon, the lunar bodies are seed vaults, just to be able to reboot things. So we're going to talk about this. So also, there's another way of giving up. I want to make sure I mention that, and that is to succumb to being a tyrant. We can't help them anyway. Might as well destroy them and put them out of their misery. There's some beings, because they've gotten themselves into a position of power in high places, they succumbed to being a tyrant. They failed at their attempts to make it like better or what they thought was better. And then, they go right in on trying to eliminate everybody and everything. And then they, like a Merovingian, they digress into it and they start becoming just, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, like a Skeksis. Oh, Birdman. Already gone through the reptile phase, back to the bird phase 1,000 times and still can't figure it out. No longer looking for young, new innovation, no longer supporting and helping others discover who they are to at least get to part of what they reach. Just, it's over for everybody, right? So that's why the avatar wakes up. So let me take you through the door very briefly of the master genetic engineers for this planet. I'm not sure how far their reach is. I wouldn't really take it beyond this planet, But let's look at some symbolism here. And here is one. What's up with the pictures? It's almost like all the pictures. I got the picture right here. Give me 1 second, everyone. I got to keep loading the picture. Help me. Here it is. You've seen this symbol before. Again, we will be giving the reference to all the books that we have talked about today, which is just 2, amazingly enough. Masters themselves. We give thanks for them. Let us read here. Now, is this Star Trek? Star Trek that you? It says here, Amma's door. Okay. Now, Amma is another name for Thoth, Hermes, the Jackal. It is male and female. You can't forget that. That's why I don't even like using the word Jackal, because let me show you why. Right away, the mind associates a dog with a man. Bake on that for one moment. Right away, the way the brain is wired, when we think about dogs, we think about men. And when we think about cats, we think about women. Do you see what I mean? It's like already seem to be coded in there. And also symbolically, when we think about cats, which are in themselves a species of the reptile, right? We think of Venus. And when we think of dogs, we think of Mars. But unfortunately, that would still be inaccurate, because the blending that has already gone on in those two spaces, you need to go up further a little bit into the constellation before you started really being able to get to the primaries. And what the primaries are is like the way that the galaxy, because it's on entropy, right? The way the cosmos is pointed, there's a real 12 o'clock on the clock. And where that 12 o'clock is creates what we would say is the Messiah moment, or basically the code that everybody's going to be going in until the clock gets to 12 again. And now there's a new house. And this is the house that we're actually in, despite what our fantastic astrologers are saying right now. And it's because while we would want to go on to something else, we seem to be phase locked between the experiences going on in Orion, which is the great hunter. Remember, the hunter has his dog at his feet, which is Sirius. Pleiades is right up from here. It's not here on the map, but it shall be considered. And then Canis and Sirius, Canis, this is all dogs all around here. So what is going on? And what I'm looking at here again, because from the origins in this space, it says in chapter 7, we discuss the significance of the door symbol to the Ogham mythology. A door appeared between the mistress of speech, which has 22 articulations, and identified as the 22 articulations with identified the 22 articulations with the 22 autosomes. When the mistress of speech was sacrificed, she was standing in front of the door of the world. This door was also associated with the door of the house of the Dogan spiritual leader, the Hogan, which was made of 2 panels surrounded, or rather connected by a sort of network formed by the 22 signs. And the 22 signs of the door symbolize the door of the world. The drawing shown in figure 7.6 was the collective work of the oldest smiths, chosen from among the Demented, the only true smiths. Okay, so let's look a little bit deeper then. Give me 1 second. Yeah. So what we're saying here then, let me just make sure that we're very clear here. See, so what I was saying again about how we see things, we start getting a little petty and stuff like that. We start thinking about petty stuff, and we're talking about big stuff. We're talking about blending humans and creating other life forms and all sorts of stuff, right? So the main conversation is about and around the 22. Because that's the autosomes, which are the duplicate the chromosomes, right? So let's look very briefly then at just this. Let's demystify it for good. The 22 then is a direct reference to that inside of the body, the autosomes and their arrangement determine where you're at on what is now called the tree of life, which in themselves are the spheres and the energies and how they're moving through you. And because these are also associated with animals, we know in eniology, there's a whole association for every single position on this. This means this is the alchemical knowledge that gives you the awareness, not that symbol in the middle, but the one on the left. Your chromosome, your autosomes, those are the components, the secret language. It's not spoken. It's not pronounced, right? There are words of power, doubt it not, but this is an intonation and it exists within you. And when you know how to arrange it, you can be anywhere in the mansion. Okay, in my father's house, there are many mansions, right? This is the mansion. So just to make it very clear, when we're starting to talk then about what went on with Amma, we have to get into realizing that what Amma was doing was Amma had possession of this. And it's very clear when it says that Amma kind of stole it, stole a spaceship. Look, here we go. Let me flip my picture here real quick. Let's just read it through because there's a couple of these here. I believe that the god Hermes, who was the Greek god of the thieves, because who was Jesus, who is Hermes, crucified next to? Thieves. And when they asked us dying, what was this? Master, even if right now, if we was to repent, when we go to heaven with you, it's because this is the god of the thieves still, right? This is the father of the fatherless still. The worst type come in and get forgiveness. And we won't say it doesn't work. I got some cousins, and if it wasn't for fake Jesus, they would be done. Now, they can't climb over the moon. They're no higher than the Lord. I mean, they cannot get an ascent any higher than the moon. And you'll see why in their consciousness. But it still be that better than that underworld that they was in. There was something else going on earth before all this started. I got to give you a news flash too. Remember, like if you just wanted to take this as the definite, and you'd be like, well, shoot, when I was on my DMT journey, I saw something else and you didn't say nothing about that, because stuff was going on before this. It was the Nomo in this case who were attempting to go into another procreation process of making perfect immortal beings. It's kind of like the same thing you would do when you're having babies. You're like, man, I'm gonna make this baby perfect. He ain't gonna be cute. She ain't gonna be cute. But for them, it's like they gonna have double genitalia, if you may, spiritually, so they can procreate with themselves and be immortal and live with us in our family forever. And it failed. Just like somebody put in there, Brandy said, they failed 3 times. And in those times of failure, something was created though. And because it existed when the things that created everything created, it always exists. And that's why there are secret societies. Because it has evolved over time. It has regenerated itself. It has bolted itself on to different systems. It learned technology. It did all sorts of stuff. It brought leaders into the world. It got an army for itself. It got into the eyes and the ears and nose and throat of kings. You see what I mean? So this thing moves through everything and is also you. So any master was automatically challenged with taming this. It's seen as a snake, a serpent, a fox, a dog, a goat. It's called the serum also, right? Serum is where we get our word from, the serum. Serum is a sanguine goat or a hairy goat, right? And this serum, though, as a word means a cure for something. Because why? It's supposed to be the mediator. So people didn't even know when they elected Maga, those that elected Maga elected a mediator from the Western cult priesthood over themselves to be their go-between, and don't even know the dude. You don't elect, you don't know what you think these people pay. His mother she moves through time. She brought little Trump all the way into the future. They show the paperwork of all this stuff that they into something. They're from an island out there. Even George Bush, as silly as he is, he's a Hyksos king. And the degradedness of the DNA, just because you got royal blue blood, we didn't check there that you are the best and the smart. You're saying that. To be able to maintain that, there you got to do the work like everybody else. You got to connect to the wheel. Other people can't connect to the wheel for you. You see what I mean? So they degraded like a Skeksis over time. Also for stealing and taking things, which the Jackal is it's an energy also from the Jackal where he steals. He stole the Nomo spaceship, which meant that he stole DNA to create the beings that we're seeing here now, which you'll see here in just a moment. So let's read it. Magus or Maga are correlated in the Semitic languages with the propagation of the angelic lineage, demonstrated in Hebrew lexicology as magus in the equivalent of magamini, sexual intercourse. Cognate with the Hebrew word magi rendered in the English as occult. Magus is further related to the Old Arabic to the direction Maghrib, the West. Etymologically, Maghrib is deduced from the priestly groups, the Maga, the rabbis, synonymously with the Mada and the Martu, definitive of the West. That's what it means, the West. The origins of the Martu, commonly known as the Median, the Greek, the Medoi, correlated with the arcane people, the Amorites, analogous to the Westerner, right? So what you're seeing here is within the code of language, which again is the real lexicon. It's the ability to be able to know Lex Rex, which is the king, because the king, Thoth, Hermes, etc., the god dog, produced the language. There was the language. Look, what language are whales speaking? We're like, you know, you ain't doing that. You're doing this. So where does that come from? And so what it's explaining is that became the mediator. They were elected as the mediators over us. And people used to have enough sense where they would scan the Messiah. They would like, yo, do some magic first. Before they elected a leader over them, the leader needed to do certain things. Now people elect leaders that don't do anything but speak. They still speak for them, and that holds. This is about, it's happening on a mental, spiritual, physical level because of the rites. Now remember, it's favorite. So that's the red hat. So that's going to be the red team. Now on the red team, the blue team is the more aggressive. The blue team is actually a predator, and their rights is to shed red blood. So for them, that's more of, let's say, the adrenochrome side of things, right? And so what we're talking about is we're talking about there's one that powers itself on putting others in fear, scaring, killing. Oh, we're going to blow all your shit up. Look, let me show you. Let me show you what we're going to do to one of them. That's like Machiavelli and all those kind of things. They talk about it's better to be feared than to be loved. And so they'll go and destroy something utterly and show it to everybody, right? So those are the rights, the red rights, right? Spilling red blood. Now, remember, we're the mammals, so you're bleeding red blood right now. So you see how this gets sick, because if you don't have a proper mediator, what the mediator is supposed to come do is stand in the gap and then arbitrate between you and negotiate basically on balanced terms. So that's also why they elect the politicians, right? They're supposed to be negotiating for balanced terms to things that are going to benefit you. What are they doing now? They've succumbed to digitaria. The digital, okay, Kano, all right? Kano in Mortal Kombat has one eye, one red eye. Kano means dog. That one red eye, right? That's that digital one red eye of Hal, right? And you see what it's doing. Now you see the play. Now it's all about, can we move quick enough, which I'm going to talk about at the end of this bill also today. Can we move quick enough to be through and not be dealing with the whole digitaria construct that is wanting to be put up? Where just the phone you have in your hand, at some point you got to even dish the phone. And we're speeding towards that. Can you dish the phone right now? Your bank is, can your two-factor authentication is connected to it? Man, we in. We have to do, this is not sit back and wait and see if I agree. I told the world, when the next movement comes, we better make sure we're with it. All of that being choosy, we want another leader. He's not, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong today. Call me tomorrow. I don't want to do anything. We need to start figuring out how we're going to be put into the proper array to be able to overcome what we're experiencing, not what's coming, but what's happening now. So let's keep going. So we have these two bloodlines then, so you can see how it's popping off, but I only can show it to you from the spiritual plane. If you're going to see it here, you're going to get confused because you're going to start looking for skin colors and you're going to get lost in the rainbow. Welcome to the rainbow, right? We're talking about specifically when we're pulling back the veil, we're dealing with a reptile and a demon, okay? Because it's got horns and because it was demonized because the mother was demonized. Let me show you. Let me see real quick, 1 second. This is what happens when, one force gets too strong and all of a sudden there starts to be some overthrowing. Okay, I got it right here. Here we go. Boom. Let me see, symbolize right here. 1 second. Let me just put this one in. And, I know some of y'all, it's just going to be an enlightening night. Let's just put it that way. It's going to be enlightening as I shift into the next gear here. So let's hear what's said here. My research indicates, there we go. Might take a little break real quick here in just a second. My research indicates that when the figures in the earlier religion were reversed, because we talked about that, how the moon became a male and all of a sudden it became a female and then the sun became a man. And it's like, yo, what's going on? That's called the war in heaven. There was a war in heaven and Michael and the angels fought and Satan and his angels, and they go crazy with it. It's like, could you just tell me what's going on? Does everything have to be a Disney movie with you? So my research indicates that when the figures in the earlier religion were reversed in Christianity and Judaism, dualism, you can call Judaism dualism from now on, right? The spiritually immortal Nomo were transferred into evil spirits and identified with the devil and Satan. And that's what I was telling you. Oh, man. That almost cost me the whole YouTube channel when I tried to explain to everybody who the devil and Satan really was, because it's quite evident, but they're on some kind of dummy juice and they just didn't get it. That character they're talking about is one of the ancestors. This is explained specifically. It was actually the Nomo in the ancient mother that all of a sudden in the books became these evil serpents. And then they were identified with the devil and Satan and Levi and Leviathan, right? Lev means the heart. The original evil figure, the Jackal, became Yahweh. So the Jackal goes for the full overthrow. Masculine goes over the full overthrow of the feminine. And it says that the original evil figure, the Jackal, became Yahweh, the God of Judaism, who went on to become the God of Christianity, right? Because he just morphs. So he went from then to now being into the Christ and being the Christ, right? Especially in its own recovery process. And we talked about that, like how you see this evolution of Yalda Bayo, where now he's like even trying to be a nice guy, but it's like now he's just a big mess here. It's going to take everybody to clean it up because it's in the DNA. So it goes on, it says, they're the second first century amulets of the snake-footed man known as the Anguiped or Anguipede, or the snake-footed god. On these amulets, the Anguipede has soft serpent-like legs, right? And I think I have one of those real quick here, this Anguipede. Let me see where it's at. Yeah, I do have one. Let me show you. Just so you can understand the reference from my scholars. This is an Anguiped, which is this. They're talking about this amulet that when people were fighting for Yahweh and they was dying, they were finding this on their neck when they were burying them. And what this is a reference to, let me get back to my notes. Okay, 1 second. What's my page here? There it is. Oh, man. Give me one quick second. I kind of lost my place inside of the actual clips. I'm gonna just keep going. That's what he says. In references and words described as a symbol of the DNA letters. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Bam. There it is. We're just gonna keep moving through this. I'm not even gonna go back. I'm gonna keep moving through because it's just to prove a point here. Again, so we're talking about, so at this stage, so let's just kind of get some bearing on the story at this point. So we have a being that is created. It's not complete. So it's tripping. It's now at this point where it is on this mission to start creating, start its own world. And as the Doggin put it, it stole a ship. Now that could mean, because the Doggin started mentioning that basically when we're talking about ships moving, we're talking about things that are inside of the earth, moving through the earth in tunnels. That's what they're referring to as outer space. So we don't know because we ain't been down there, but the whole thing could be filled with, I don't know, huge balls or coils or spirals all moving around the internal part of the planet like it's blood to keep it in alignment with what's up there. That's way more to the point of probably what's going on versus looking at this outer space thing. Okay. So it's saying that though, that the Jackal stole these funkendating and creative components, also known as the granary or the smithery. So let's read it. It says, in another Greek story mentioned earlier, Hermes, who's the same being, stole 50 immortal cows from the sun god Apollo, right? Now, those 50 immortal cows are a reference to the daughters, right? The wombs. This is why it's like when they talk about how like humans been kidnapped from other constellations, this is the reference right here about that those women or the wombs or the cows were stolen by the Jackal because it had plans to create its own beings. But it needed that. So it says that he basically, to give you a metaphor, he stole the spaceship and took off. This is like a kid. This is the worst kid. You know what I mean? It's like you wake up at night, you go use the restroom, and you look out the window. Where the hell is my car? Where is James? Oh, shit. Yo, man, this is, because this could be the end of your life. He crashed into something. You don't got no insurance because the welfare, you know what I mean? So this is real stuff. So when you look at this, the only way you can lens this and realize what's happening is to make it relative to you, or you'll get lost in this. Right? You'll end up bowing down and worshiping something. That's what'll happen besides yourself. There's plenty of folks doing that right now, especially when it comes to externalized RAM. So let's keep going. So let me move my picture off the screen here. Let's finish. It says, so this suggests that the immortal cows taken by Hermes can be related to the stolen fire. Because like we talked about, as I thought I mentioned earlier that the Return of the Jedi, and I didn't, but the Return of the Jedi, DJEDI, the two videos that I made, if this is your first time hearing this, that is necessary material. This is like you're lost over there and you're just like in it from the kick of sci-fi because you don't know anything about what I'm talking about. Check out the Return of the Jedi and you will get some bearing from there, right? So anybody who knows that, and here's what I'm saying right now, knows that we already found out that Prometheus, who's another savior, is also Hermes. Every time there's a savior, Hercules, whatever, it's always Hermes, Thoth, also known as almost every name that is referring to a god. Okay. So it says Hermes stole 50 immortal cows, right? So, and these are of course 50 wombs. It talks about how the Jackal had also stole from the Nomo. It's the same thing. It's the god of the thieves. He stole something. It says this suggests that the immortal cows taken by Hermes can be related to the stolen fire, right? Because Hermes got this fire, or Prometheus got this fire. So in the Doggin religion, the fire represented the spiritual essence of the Nomo, and the cows symbolized their biological nature. So it's right there. He got the spirit, which again is the serpent, the reptilian thing, the flying airy part, the old serpent, the one with the knowledge and all that, spirit, and the biological nature. This is it. He doesn't just get or remember, this is an androgen, but it's predominantly male. So he doesn't just get the spiritual essence. He also gets the biological. So with this cabinet, this is why Thoth Hermes becomes the biggest god really in Egypt. And even Osiris is Hermes, because he had in his possession everything that was needed to begin to create. So the 50 stolen cows may have represented the nomo souls lost to the earth in the failed experiment. So this is just saying, whether you want to believe it or not, that there are some souls here that they're kind of like from somewhere else, and they're kind of lost here because they were jacked. Literally, that Jack is the jackal. Okay, so Jack is Jacob, the supplanter, right? So this is just letting you know the codes in order to be able to walk through that in yourself and set yourself into a whole nother level of expansion and consciousness. So we'll finish. The Hermes caduceus, which looks like DNA, likely represents the stolen essence or DNA of the Nomo. If we refer back to chapter 7, where the word was described as the symbol of the DNA, which we saw that. Remember in Origen's tetragrammaton, and I was showing how the tetragrammaton is the same pattern that the DNA is in as far as from a helix or a torus. And the letters were created with genomes. We can now see how significant it is that Hermes was also associated with the alphabet. Okay, so now let's keep going. Actually, let's take a moment. I drank a lot of water to make sure I don't go nuclear. I suggest you do the same thing. I'm going to take a moment. We're going to give it a minute. We're going to give it about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I have this recording, so if you got other things to get to in infinity, you could take off. But I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to refresh myself so that way, I can do my best. So give me a quick second here. Let me see what I got over here on the wheels of steel. Uh-oh. Just we're gonna do something mellow though. We ain't gonna go nuts. Let me see. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, so yeah, just take a breath. When we come forward, we're gonna get deeper into this, and which is ourselves. We're gonna demystify these mysteries so that by the end of this, which is but the beginning, we will have fully restored and regenerated ourselves. So it be written, let it be done.
You shouldn't give up in frustration. Your body has the DNA for it.
Well, then why can't we see it? We have here nitric acid, glycerine, and a special mixture of my own.
Wholeness and Balanced Vibrations Tribe.
Is at peace. There is no hunger. There is no violence. The environment is healed. Honesty, courtesy, and kindness are practiced by all. Our world has never been more perfect.
Your instinct will be to remove your hand from the box. If you do so, you die.
Where is your tribe? My tribe? They live on another planet in another solar system. Even in your lies, some truth slips through. That mythical community you're supposed to come from, Fort Wayne. What about it? A fort. Unconsciously, you chose a name that was belligerent. Where were you nurtured?
All right, y'all, we're going to take about 3 more minutes. I'm almost done with the refreshments. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone out there that has been so instrumental to this message and making sure that we all stay in this alignment and tribe and continuously project this truth despite whatever we must face, because we know that we'll be facing ourselves. I wanted to also let everyone know, because people ask from time to time, hey, what can I do to help? Man, we put together the University. We just launched University 3.0. It is amazing. It's more like massive access and a choose your own adventure. You get an opportunity to educate yourself with things that you have not seen here on YouTube, a real curriculum that has been put together, especially for our times and consciousness. So if you want to support, definitely enroll and get yourself together, interact with other members that are actually inside the tribe. They're amazing. And also give yourself, again, the opportunity to have this knowledge in your life. Give your children the opportunity to actually have someone that is aware of what's going on and can pass this knowledge to them. And I also wanted to say that we have done some enhancements also to Secret Energy, and we've bought some amazing groups in. We're going to be booting up some stuff there. We're just getting started, but it's a place for us all to connect. These are ambassadors and tribe members alike, and start to see what's going on, especially as we say on the ground in the physicality, and how we can keep assisting each other and bringing more comfort, especially in the times that we're going through with each other. And so this is a perfect space that has already been filtered and calibrated to like exactly what you like, because that's who we are and we're beings of resonance. So I'm gonna give this about 2 to 3 more minutes, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get into the final half of today's presentation, which is to me, you know, when I got in here, I was like, oh my goodness, I've never been so like, where do I start? But I definitely can feel the connection of what's coming through. So I definitely want to finish up. So let's just take a couple more minutes and then we're going to be ready. Wholeness and balanced vibration. Wow, it is 1,000 of us inside of this space tonight. Actually, yeah, it's 1,000 of us. So we give thanks, and we're going to go ahead and not disappoint and keep rolling into this. But I will ask you to take a moment, stand up, shake yourself off, realize that you are in this space to actually gain the most, and that, wow, what a difference a day makes. Like, maybe you didn't get up this morning thinking that you would hear a magnum opus, but somehow it landed right into your lap. And remember, I know who I am because I see who you are. And because I know who I am, then I know who you are. So that means I'm going to do my best. And that's what's got me going into this for as long as I have been. This is my 13th or 12th year, somewhere in there. I stopped counting. And I hope to have an immortal existence with beautiful beings, people that I know, beings that I've known. It was like, yo, we was on Earth. Remember we was on Earth? You know what I mean? Those kind of, builds. So that's what I'm about. That's the projection. So let me just go ahead and take a sip of water here and refresh my cup, and we're ready. Okay. So where we were at in the story is the dog stole the spaceship along with the Nomo's granary and actually dipped to Earth. So, hopefully you didn't just come in. So let's now, kind of center around then that this is obviously not the whole story. Who would ever expect to have the whole story? That's why it's important to understand the stars, because the stars are keeping the account. Remember, they're the communication network that is the communication network of time. So they must record everything that went on, but you need to know how to read that in order to get the complete story. So language, as we've seen, plays a big part of that, because based on what you're saying, that determines your configuration for that space-time. And because the essence of the alchemical elements are actually within those letters and those numbers, but more importantly, those vowels and those consonants. So the vowels are the energy, and then the consonants are what's holding the energy. You cannot say any consonant without, for a long time, like B. You need that E, B. So to sustain the power, vowels are the power and consonants are the holders of that power, right? So it's like a cup and then something to pour into the cup. And through that, that's exactly how we get here. Bing, I'm something that was poured into a cup. Now my mixture or my formula may vary, and that's where the alchemical work comes in, right? So because the alchemical work is done through language, we can clearly see that there has been some skirmishes popping off in the past about the language. So let's just read here very briefly. And it says, the white goddess Graves refers to the battle of the trees, published in the Meridian Archaeology. The Meridian Archaeology, which is a printed medieval collection of Welsh literature. So these are medieval books. He believed the battle, which occurred in about 400 BCE, was associated with alphabets. And a result of the battle, the order of the letters was changed to correspond to a new calendar system, right? So that's a change of power. That's a change of energy. That's a change of essence. That's a change of alchemy. This is also, even when we're in this digitarian now, it's because there are quantum devices that are running on the planet. Deep Blue, the Hadron Collider, different things are moving so fast in the space, they're changing the space-time. So that changes the fabric of the language. And that happens as simple as us saying Hadron Collider, and then being able to break that down and understand what chemicals and what atoms and what kind of electricity. That's the language to it. That's how things come into existence. That's it. People are looking for something more, but that's it. That's what you can make it. And it's more than enough, right? So it goes on, it says, which occurred in 400 BC, was associated with alphabets. And as a result of the battle, the order of the letters was changed to correspond to a new calendar system, right? And then it goes on and it says, Graves reports that the new alphabet was associated with the Hercules Oghamius, right? Now we know who Hercules is. Hercules. That's Hermes. Or the Ogham sun face. Now there's a new name. I would have to go look up old sun face. Of course I did. I'm going to show you in a minute. As an earlier alphabet had been associated with Phorinius, according to Lucian, who wrote in the second century CE, Ogham was pictured as a veteran Hercules with a club and a lion skin. In the Dogon religion, the lion symbolized Leb, who's the jackal, who was perceived as a regeneration of the jackal. Okay, so time out. This just lets you know regeneration is possible on Earth. However in which the jackal did it, probably through these words and these letters and the numbers and the DNA and all that, but it regenerated itself and it brought itself into the height of what it could be. And as from a jackal to a lion, from Snoop Dogg to Snoop Lion. Okay. So for Phorinius, on the other hand, was a jackal figure. In Argos, the Kinneri writes, it was told of Phorinius, the son of Malia, that he was the first man, that he founded the first human. Okay, because we're not talking about what else is going on with the matriarchy. We're talking about now what's called the fall, which is the entrance of these beings into the planet and starting to basically, remnants of them are what they call the fallen ones, people in their same group, which we're calling the angels, coming here and now starting to interact with the beings that are here. Okay, and how that comes out in English, because this is a war. They're talking about there's a war going on over a language. So what have we learned so far? If there's a war going on Earth, then the immediate heaven, if you may, if there's a war going on there. And that war is about the language. So then when we look in the other book, the book says basically the knowledge of how to build and work the temple is underway. This is why I said that God looked down, saw that man was building some kind of tower, and called the Tower of Babel, which is the language, Babylonian. And it's like, and now remember, there's multiple beings here. The Arabs do an excellent job, the Moroccans mainly, an excellent job at laying out how many different kind of jinn there are, because many of them manifest in the desert as vipers, snakes, venomous, but trainable. And they have a practice, and one of these is on YouTube. Several of them, it's a known thing. They have a practice where they exercise a person, and when the spirit comes out, they put the spirit back into the snake. And because the snake is more stronger than the spirit, the person becomes confined within the snake. I mean, the demon, becomes confined back in the snake. Also, in the acts of the Zarin, when these women, in the matriarch were actually looking, as we've mentioned before, they were looking to actually get the child created through the contact of an angel, also known as a Zarin, also known as sometimes a jinn. Through the process of the virgin coming in the bedchamber, the male being there, but also the elders being around, especially the older women, and knowing when the copulation point needs to happen for there to be an intersecting of a star. And then when the woman goes into an orgasm, it opens up like a trap for that entity, and the entity goes in. And when it goes in, it goes in also the same time the male semen is going in, which is creating an electron. And now the child is becoming basically a demigod. So the matriarchs knew even how to create an arbitrator, and most of the time it was probably females. So in this process, again, so this kind of stuff, just in general, it's like, man, I'm doing programming in Java. So this is like, this is totally different organic work than what people are thinking of. Because then when the spirit was inside of the woman, it couldn't stay there because it's too powerful. And the woman's, it'll kill her and everybody else. So then they got to get the spirit out. So then they bring a goat, and this is still going on. But this is in the ancient books of the Sharif. They then bring a goat and they slit the goat's throat. First, when they bring the goat, there's something about the goat that actually attracts this spirit enough to get it out of the woman. That means it would have to be like part goat then, instead of making it like a whole, like, oh my goodness, what are we talking about? It's like, if it was attracted, that means it had to be a goat also, or at least mixed with a goat. And you find, yes, Sarims, they're part of the Irims. They're not that high up on the chain, but yet they exist. And because of where they're at in magnitude, their spirits are a bit more stronger than the standard cheeseburger eating human that's running around, right? So then when they got the inception, because they're not looking to keep this entity around, they're just using it to get something pregnant. Now you can kind of see where the matriarch, so they were using it to get something pregnant, and then to get it out of the woman, they would bring the goat in. The spirit would then go into the goat, and then they would slice the goat's throat, and then that would release the spirit back into the heavens, and it would keep going like a comet. More specifically, a meteor. They say that the entry level of all the entities that are here, that are really not from here, they come first as stones. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this, because that's a good point right there. So right here, let me see. It's funny because I had made these images and I made them the perfect size and everything. And then every time I go there to find it, it's like, yo, where's that one? But then I have to go to the original one. And it's not the one chopped up and everything, but it works nonetheless. So give me 1 second here. This stone. Here we go. Okay. Stones. There we are. Okay. Okay. Prometheus was also credited with having created humans out of lumps of clay. Okay, so this is Hermes. He's landed. I can't even admit this. This is wow. This is better than anything that who's writing the movies they can put together. So he's now, or it's now here. It was part of androgynous. So it's now here. It's got the mixing components. Prometheus has got the fire. He's got these lumps of clay. Okay, so just the relationship to that, even Adam, red clay, that this clay that they're referring to is not the same kind of clay that you're digging up right now in your backyard. It's elements and elementals all mixed together or in different variants, right? That's the essences that we're talking about of the nomo and the biological matter, right? And so it says that out of lumps of clay, further linking to the stolen fire of creation. Carini reports that sarcophagi in Rome were adorned with reliefs showing how Prometheus fashioned humans as small clay statues, upon which Athene breathed life. She bestows souls on them by bringing butterflies to them. Okay, so these are codes. This is a reference to why they call Anubis basically the one that guides a person through death. Right. And then this butterfly is really what they would say is the metamorphosis, all the way from a worm all the way around to the process of being in life again. So what they're saying is, as a worm, you're underground, you're in the world, in the earth, which is dead, what they would call dead, if you may, and then bring you all the way back to life again through these essences, these elements, right, which we're made out of. So that's why, look what it says. In the Greek mythology, the butterfly was a symbol of the psyche or the soul, right? So it's saying that the soul is never going to die, that it's going to keep metamorphosizing back from a worm all the way back up to a butterfly again, metaphorically. In the region of Phocis in Greece, visitors used to be shown great blocks of stone that were said to smell like a human body. Huh? Well, this makes sense then, because like I said, the stones are the bones, right? But even veins of crystals and stuff, these are actual beings. And the condition that they are in is the condition of the elements that reside within it, right? So the stones were said to be left over from the clay of which Prometheus had made the humans with. And Karini said that there was tales of how humans could raise or arise and re-arise from the stone. Stones were also associated with the creation and regeneration of the Dogon religion and was discussed later. So these are the conduit points. These are like the hard drives, if you may, of this particular essence, this particular energy that we're made of. So it's a feedback loop that the being, you always have a continuum. It's like you have a streak, and you can always go like to the first part of your streak and start the whole process over again. Okay, so let's keep going. So let me try to return to my notes here. So Hercules creates some humans. Exactly, that's where we're at now. And so the theme of stealing the creative component, this is always how you end up being able to spot this being through different, and people who represent the being. You'll always see the same kind of symbolism, right? And then what we're learning here is we're learning how to adapt to the origin story 2021, right? Like, because creation is continuing. Nobody's stopping right now to say, oh, hold on. We need to make sure that, and then, because in the original context of things, you can imagine that if the highest level of what you can do is really breed, if you may, you could breed a Messiah. Do you get where I'm coming from here? So it's like, they're not looking at that like, oh man, we're trying to, it's like, that's what, again, that the matriarch was like, yo, we can bring angels from this parallax. Like they knew from the stars where the height was of the vault and where was the lowest part, who could measure Adam Cadman. So they knew where the lower beings were that were just beginning. That's all they are, is just immature, right? They're going to be carrying the load for a while. They're primordial, right? All the way up to the height, the pole. And so they were timing it, but they knew that power of orgasm and that power of attraction is it's a light, and it makes them look. You see what I mean? Energy moves like that. It's like a point-to-point system. So for one moment you can shine like they shine. They like, yo, shining. And just from shining, it you see what I mean? It contacts. It's all connection, right? So now folks then got disconnected. Now folks connected to the wrong ideas. You see what I mean? All this is what you make it. Life is what you make it, whatever you think. Most of the time, it's whatever you think. People right now are getting terrorized by only their mind. They have not even experienced actually it completely yet, what they're afraid of. They're already terrorizing themselves in their mind. So getting in control of this with the real knowledge, man, it's a match made in heaven. In fact, it's the holy matrimony. It's us being the beings that are physical and spiritual in the same body. I have access to two worlds, at least. So why would I act like the one that's the finite one, the one that seems to regenerate faster, is the only one, right? So let's gain bearing. So we'll keep going here. So let us go down and confuse them, right? So we got a war on the language, okay? And it manifests back in the Bible as there's a war in heaven. And these wars always seem to take place around the same context. There's a tower being built, which is the words. What does the original tower look like? I just wanted to share that since it was here. You know, ancestors showing love. Like, I'm like, when I came in here, man, I had, my notes was about, it was dope, but it wasn't this. I got hammered in the last 3 hours. I even got out of here and I was like, man, I'm going to bomb for the first time. I don't even know every time I kept trying to access what I was going to say, it was just like, it was wild, but I had already had all the work. It had to flow all together at this specific time uniquely. So this is called the 7 Articulations. And what this was a reference to is this is basically the symbolic pattern of the body as the nomo decided, the body that as the nomo were, okay? I may not be completely correct about that. Let me make sure that I just know that it was one of them that was more advanced than the 5. I'll just say it that way, just to not make sure I have to go back over and hey, everybody, blah, blah. That there was this one, and this was called the 7 Articulations, but The one we were predominantly on was 5. So there's also a 6, and they actually said the six was a bit more, I guess, let's say optimal for the space that we're in, because see what you're doing is you're working to create something that is going to survive the test of time. So I'm assuming just as a cog, it fits right in really well with this kind of thing that we're dealing with in the box. So it'd be a more ideal pattern. So they had these 12 or like these 6-finger beings. And that's why anytime a person crossbreeds back into their family, generally the first thing that happens is the baby that's born has 6 fingers, because you're going back one complete step. You see what I mean? So these designs were like the configurations of the human beings. And we're on this 5 because a sequence that I was, very scarcely able to put together completely. I even had a little trouble with the imagery just because I know how imagery kind of triggers people. And, it was like, okay, let me help them with this, because I can look at codes and know what's going on. I don't need to look at faces. But what it talks about, as you read, is that there was a being called Ogham, right? We read about Ogham. And it's interesting because, man, Hermes, man, he just I don't know how long he's been pulling the wool over the world's eyes and trying to stay hidden. But if you put D on that, you will get, the inner workings of the process. Okay, so that's called dogma. And what they're talking about is specifically the Ogham script. Do you remember the Ogham script? Was the language of war, that like when the war happened, when the being left that we're calling now today the Amma and the Jackal, one of the languages it created was the Ogham script, which was built on angles. And it went to try to give that to the world. And that is what you're seeing with, it kind of looks like Jesus mixed with Hermes and the Caudacious over here. And it's just that aspect of, so the divine masculine now, because time is rolling. So this divine masculine energy is now in possession of these keys of creation, but it's a work in process. It kind of even looks like the being in the middle. Maybe that's what they're trying to show. It's just like see, they talk about this in the Bacchanalia, about these Bacchite creatures. They're basically like half goat, minotaur, but more on a spiritual plane, more on a spiritual level. And that these were like the first creations of these gods. So this is how that can get confused with the Nomos creation. Remember, there's a few other levels up where they just trying to make perfect beings. Because when we think of creation, we're like, well, shoot, we all got one creator, but you don't, like your parents created you, my parents created me. Right there, we got different creators. When you get to the source, of course, but we're talking about right here. So there are multiple creators, and you got certain beings that are aware of how things are being created. Like you should know now, words create things, vibrations, intonations, these kind of things create things. But if you threw yourself into it, you're a lot more serious about the situation and what's going on. And you realize that instead of a god dog, instead of a guard dog, you need a guard god. You see what I mean? It's like, you just got to move it around a little bit. And, you're able to actually dial into what should be going on here versus what's going on, because there are Canaanite doghead priests wearing robes in the Vatican, right? They can shape shift. This is a shape shifting God. As even Pierre Sabaki, he explains how, just like they call it the watcher, just like on They Live, that there's a way to phase in and out of this specific one. When you're in the spiritual one, that's a lot more difficult. But here, because this is so many layers in the dream or in the web work of the projection, the co-creation, hive manifestation, et cetera, that this one right here is malleable by a magi or somebody who knows hermetics, or if we can get someone in here that knows Chem, the study of the blackness, man, we're cooking with grease now. We'll be able to get on to the next level unless we're trying to leave somebody, because that's how you have a first round trip ticket to staying where you are, because we're talking about us, not everybody else. Find me in the heart, as I always say. Everything is in here, right? So let's keep going. So now, so we got this great war. So of course they're fighting over the powerful components. This is like even more powerful than a nuclear weapon. So this is starting a pop off, whether it's between, as we've seen, there was clearly some Amazonians. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on. So it's interesting that even when I see Inanna, though, I wonder if Inanna is really Hermes. I think I'm actually going to end up finding out that Inanna is Hermes, because every time something is stolen, it's always Hermes. And if you remember that the Queen of Heaven stole the name of God, but it wasn't, see, it's written wrong. That wasn't the queen, that was the daughter. And in this respect, this is again the Hermes female side stealing the lost word, which is the tetragrammaton, which is the DNA, which is the Taurus. So do you see how you can begin roping gods in? Gods that have been hiding in other sexes? It's like, wait a minute. Is that a beard? All right, so you have a beard and you have mammary glands? Baphomet, is that you? Look at you, hairy goat. You see what I mean? This whole thing right now, this is why they put this stuff up there, and they're like, oh man, because that's theatrics. Of course it's happening. They got folks, how are you gonna know all this? If your parents didn't teach you, this ain't even something that, you know what I mean? You gotta, you know, so it's just not gonna be like they know this. They will have to pretend. And they would get dropped little morsels and vittles every now and then to make them feel like, but who's guiding this? Who's working the plow? Is it you? Do you know these mysteries, right? So we can then see there was a rebellion, right? The story of Sirius B, which is Digitaria, Canis, also known as Canaan, from that family lineage. We're not saying everybody. Let me show you something else. Let me show you how strong the bloodlines stretch across just in the Western world. 1 second. Let me see here. Boom. Yeah, something had to happen with these pictures. Here we go. Just in the Western world. Example afforded by Erech. And the Athenian line is important as it illustrates the region of Greece is connected to Syria, and it is the satellite, and its satellite Egypt, specifically Thebes, okay? Thebes. Bloodlines of Athenian kings and later the Roman emperors trace their descendant from the capital Thebes, covertly Haran. Influential Haran's affiliation outlined the serpent's genus and propagation of the Western or Roman church. In the order, Thebes governed, annotated the cobra crown, a device ratified covertly with Syria or Haran and the Western priesthood. Okay, so this, you should lose the idea, as we talked about a long time ago, about how in Dubai, these are still those who are serving Elakeh or the high creature. They're custodians of the high creature, meaning that the Arab nations now inherited, because that's what Islam became. It became the worship of the jackal under the symbol of the crescent and the moon, which is directly related to Hermes, which we talked about. Wolves howl at the moon. A werewolf, not a vampire. A vampire is Venus, if you may. Mars is a werewolf. The moon is tying them both in. The moon is white. It is the red, white, and blue. The moon, or the Lord, is playing the arbitrator between two planets. Okay? And that the planets are our DNA and the paths and stuff that we have been mixing in So we keep going. So we say there's a rebellion, and then the digital age then began a long time ago. Okay. So this digital age of Digitaria was being, as it is today, cultivated by a Western priesthood nominal of Amun, which means hidden, the hidden one, Sirius B, the hidden star, right? Secretly, this denomination is known throughout history variously as the Amu, the Emiri, the Erek, the Uruk, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Umma, the Hyksos, the Martu, the Madoi, and the Mada. Damn, you done called them all out. They're like, who, me? Now it's just their kids hanging around. Who, me? I don't know what I'm going to do with all this money and power. I don't know what I'm going to do. Let's shoot up into space and then come back down. What are we going to do? Its institutions seeded the Babylonian, the Egyptian, the Athenian, the Roman dynasties. Notice the words, though, because that over there in the Delta was not called Egypt. But when it's now called Egypt and it's under this rule of Martu and Mada, this Western empire, the cornerstone and the mantle of Europe, that's the secret society. That's the brotherhood, right? So as we keep going, you know, in this process of them attempting to become from dogs to lions, you get several different mediators coming through. Here's Zervan. As we talked about before, this is Amu. So remember that it's regenerating. So it's still adding more and more layers to its experience. Just like we talked about how, you know, as a spiritual being, every experience that you have is going to layer and make you more than what you were before that experience, right? But sometimes that becomes your weight and you start getting heavy. And that's why you need to know these processes, because there's an essential, there's a way to boil it off. There's a way also to put it back on. Some folks is too airy. They've lost their damn minds. You know, they're in some fairy tale and our children are here. And they're positioned to be able to do something, and they're doing nothing. They're sitting back like deer in the headlights, if you may, just looking at this whole thing happening in the world, wondering when it's going to stop, even though they're the ones that are supposed to be responsible for making it happen. Like, just come through for once in your immortal life. So, because, you know, stealing, again, this has a lot to do with also because, man, I think personally, you would have to be a fool to not think the Nomo didn't know what they were doing. If you understand what we're talking about here, where time is no factor, you get a chance to see how it's all going to work out. And then when it don't work out, you don't ever even run that model. So I personally, my personal belief, it would be my own opinion, believe they knew what was going to happen with the Jackal. They knew the Jackal was going to decouple, and they knew it was going to create this whole universe or university for us to try to figure out who we are through everything else that we don't like and that we do like, until finally we get to figure out how to put it all back together again. And then when we finally done that, we then deserve, not where it's just given to you, but then you deserve to be where you are then, because a being that doesn't know what they have and what they went through to actually get it, that's what happens with parents. Parents, like some of the kids don't know what the parents went through to put them in the position that they're in now, because the parents are always trying to exclude the things from their life that they had to go through. Right. But then what happens is, this is why any royal child is not raised generally by the parents. They talk about the Society of Atlantis didn't do that. Why? Same thing that you see in royalty, blue blood, regalia, etc. When a child is born, there is 7 or 8 magi, seers, all types of folks, equestrian, femininity school, all of those there. The parents are not imagining that they know how to teach the child all that. They're going to do what the parents do, but they're going to make sure that they got a damn Gandalf there or a Merlin there that's able to teach the one who is coming in to the inheritance of who they are, man. Man, it's just sometimes just like, it's so much power and energy and potential. And I just know it's gonna do what it does. And we just have to be patient and understand the process of this. But sometimes I'm just like, because I know what it can do. You know, I get an opportunity. I live an amazing life. And sometimes like the only thing that's still getting me is that everybody else is not living that amazing life. And it just makes it impossible for me to sit back and feel comfortable and feel like, okay, you see what I mean? So it's just that, and being real with that. And, you know, and continuing to keep going, you know, but it's very interesting in the experience though. Like to even be able to feel, to be able to shed tears, to all of this stuff, man, I'm not taking it for granted, man. We're beings that came from nowhere, nothing. And now we can do this. It's like that in itself tells us the power. So what I'm getting at here though is there is guilt. How in which did you come by the power? This is even what some races are facing now. They don't know. They're like, well, shit, my dad stole the power. It looks like he killed for the power. They'll do anything for the power. You see, you got every example of what some beings will do for the power and never get the power. So it says here, the hollowed out stalk may be associated with the robber's crook. Damn, that's 2 words of thievery. The robber's crook. That's the Scythian in Dogon mythology. The robber's crook was what the jackal in the guise of the smith used to steal the fire from the Nomo's workshop. According to Ogham, the smith went stealing with the robber's crook. It was in the mouth of this stick that fire began. That was the smith's gift to the world. The robber's crook was the depiction of the Nomo whom the crook represented. So it's saying, that's why it's saying man's best friends. This is where this entitlement comes from, because this entitlement, the energy that this force is in is like, well, shoot, I gave you the opportunity to live. And this is even always what Freemasons say. If you ever catch a Freemason in the elevator and you just kind of like, look, man, do y'all really be doing them secrets and stuff like that? And, you know, you can back them in a corner on something and they'll say, well, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't even be able to study the spiritual and have more religions and spiritual life and be able to, I don't know. It's like, maybe not you though, because that seemed to be about 2,000 years ago when the Skeksis was here, and you're not even the one that's supposed to be holding the covenant right now, but you're thinking that I'm not aware of this. So it's just like, they want to try to use the excuse that it's because of them that we're able to read and have religions and all this kind of stuff. And they lean on that. That's the plausible deniability. When really, they're way over their head, sinking. Because this is principalities. That's what the Arabs was trying to tell them. That's what the Moroccans and the Moors was trying to tell them. Mor and Mar means snake. This is what they were trying to explain. Look, there's another world, right? And these beings, they're on a whole nother level. They're smart. They phase in, out. They've been in and out of different entities, bodies. They got power, Kundalini, bliss, nymphs, the whole 9. I can't even start explaining it to you. I'm telling you is, do not get involved in this unless you understand what you're doing before you enter this sanctum. Because other than that, it's going to be like Pandora's box. You're going to open up a gap in your hermetic seal, and the force that's going to come in is going to be so strong, it's just going to keep opening that up more and more. And you're going to get to a point where you can't even neurologically handle it. And then you're going to go mego, you're going to go psycho, you're going to go mania, and then you're going to strip your chakra, and that's going to be done. So be in order. But see, when you come out of order, which you can clearly see, the jackal is out of order. This is why Cain, they show you in the mythos that Cain was a bit off. It was like something happened with Cain. It was the creation process was happening, and the creation process didn't go well. And then when the baby came out, the baby wasn't, the baby was demented a little bit. It was, and what that means is dementia is being more female than male or more male than female. That is dementia, because you literally start cannibalizing. This is also the same word, cannibals, right? And you notice this cancel culture, they're cannibals. They cancel you for no reason. It's like you didn't even do anything. They just eat you. Just to eat your power. Like, yo, you've been there for 10 years. 7 ain't nothing. He's dead. You see me? And they try to eat your power because they're eating. It's like, no, but I nurtured you. The words coming out of my mouth, your mouth, a certain percentage of them are even mine and ours. And you see what I mean? So, but this is the knowledge. This is the wisdom. So finally, when they say, you see that cane? Old people do what? They walk on the cane. It's their support. So finally, when you figure out the whole gamut, the wheel of time, you will then hold the time in your hand. Once you realize all this that I'm saying right now, and just it becomes clear to you, and you start turning the infinite wheel, and you remove out all the distraction, all the stories, you stop looking at these dogs and all this kind of stuff. This is just finger puppets. What's really being offered to you is, man, this is immense. I can't even give it limit. But notice how, look at this too. This is again to show how even the shoes, like I got to get it down to the shoes. You know what I'm saying, man? You got it when you get it down to the shoes. These are the shoes. The Dogons was so gracious with the knowledge and so nice, just nice with the knowledge. They had the shoes. Look. In chapter 1, I refer to the mitochondrial Eve. So what this means is the mitochondrial Eve is saying that, okay, so you're in your idea, you see Eve as the mother of Earth, humans, right? But what we're saying is a mitochondrial, the word Eve only means the beginning. That's why it says, and in the evening and the morning, in the morning and the evening was the first, in the evening and the morning was the first day. So the evening comes first. So it's saying anytime, whatever you get to jumpstart, you need to be able to jumpstart. You need to be able to identify who jump started it. Let me grab another image here real quick. Okay, so it says here, it's in chapter 1 and 2, I refer to the mitochondrial Eve, and the name was given to the researchers to the woman who was the most recent common matrilineal ancestors of all humans living today. She was a member of the population of humans living around 150,000 years ago in Africa and was identified through the mitochondrial organelles that are only passed from the mother to the offspring. According to the Dogon, Leb was the mother of all humans. In other words, she was the mitochondrial Eve, which makes the Dogon diagrams all the more significant. But Leb was Amma. So the creator of human 2.0, 3.0, or whatever one that was, because as I said before, you're seeing, it's showing you Hermes started creating his own version in her own version, but there was other ones before that, right? But see, this is where it gets really, really, really wild. This is really where it becomes where we're at today. So it's like now when you have these elements of nature and things to create with, if you descend into a warrior culture, you're going to start creating only with the most dangerous parts. This is like bombs. You're going to start creating spiritual bombs. Like you're going to try to mix all nocturnal entities. This is generally, that's why the lion is nocturnal. The snake is nocturnal. This is shade. These are the nighttime beings. The moon, the lesser god to rule the night. These are the lesser clavicles. Notice they call the clavicles of Solomon. That means the keys. What are the clavicles? This is the clavicle. How are these the keys? Because they're what's connecting things, right? So these clavicles of the lesser keys is really the building that started happening. They're building only on very vicious, very vile, very demonic, very dangerous, very jealous, very envious, very that kind of being to create what? A master race. Something that can, like a dog, see, because the one who's doing it wants to now be a shepherd. It wears a shepherd's crook, right? A crook. So when it's creating, so you see how this whole thing is? It's just like you can just go over and over and over with this, that look, it's telling you what it really is. So this is so you can navigate out of that kind of stuff and be, it's like, let's get beyond this, right? All this stuff that's happening in reality, tighten it down. It's just like we said, that it could get if we did not come together in unity. And because we didn't come together in unity completely yet, it start popping off now in the world. Now this should push us closer together. Together, we are the strongest. But all this little ferret versus mongoose versus snake thing people be doing, I'm out. I can't. You see what I mean? When there's big, this is a high stakes. It's high stakes now. So let me finish up here. So just again to understand these rites of Hecate, because this is also a big key, because then when you get Hermes running around as a female, you may lose her because you think Hermes is a male, even though her is a reference to a woman. So that Statue of Liberty is Hermes. That's not the Statue of Liberty right there on the left. Let me see the name is real quick if I can get the name. That was basically, I think it was Ferranos or something like that. Okay, so that, but when I looked at the picture, I was like, that's a Statue of Liberty. And then again, Hecate, no, excuse me. Yeah, that's Hecate. Okay. And then Hecate's got the 3 heads, but Hecate is the Statue of Liberty. So in the US, for sure, the dark magic people, if you wanted, the ones practicing the evil, for those who need layman's terms, they are followers of Hecate under the symbol of the moon, but the dark side in the real deal, the 3-headed dog, as it's seen showing right there, Rebus. And then also Hecate with the black dog. You know, unfortunately, Madonna, when she went to her first ritual, she did it with a black dog. She's got a video of doing it and everything. So it's just proof that in the Western cult, in the Western priesthood, this is what they're initiating people into. Their food for a wolf, for real. And in their dogmas and traditions, the ones that they created, they are really the wolves in sheep's clothing for real. And of course, you can see it's happening because the person is all out external. They way out of their shell. They don't have no protection. And in that, they're becoming digitalized. This is the next stage of this whole thing, digitaria, which has been going on at least since the pyramids were built, and at least since Edfu, which is a microprocessor, was built. The awareness of digitaria and Sirius and how to utilize the power from weight, that was another name of Sirius, to begin to counterbalance in the clock, the actual machination to put this projection into spin a certain type of way. And then we talk about that's the watchtowers. Those are the watchers. And how the vault and the firmament moves and how the lights refract and how the pins, which are the stars, which are beaming, which are like acupuncture connecting into the organism, which is also known as the machination, as it continues to groan under this process of being the wheel. I trust that in this knowledge today, you'll understand how to be also the ride, how to actually get on your own wheel and get to where you need to be. And as a final note here, I wanted to deliver these books. You know, I've definitely reached out to Shannon Dory and Pierre Sabak, and we've had conversations. And, you know, I often send them emails from time to time, just thanking them for however they were capable of doing it in their existence in this genealogical mixing pot that has been called the planet right now, just being able to come forth and deliver something that's true and not just a money grab, not just something that's like, okay, let me just shoot this one out the door. Every time we get into this space, as I said, we go in and there's more. There was the whole ascension process that we just went through over the last 2 months. And that's in the ascent, and that's in the activation series. The stuff that we put into the space, it's just like priceless. As I said, even if you have to set it aside because you don't want it for yourself right now and for your children, I would do that. So here's Shannon Dory. And I just want to make sure this is on the audio so that way and the video. So this is Shannon Dory's website is dayofthefish.com. All her books are here on the right. They're in PDF version also. So this means reading tonight, meaning you can get to it right away. The Day of the Fish. The main thing that I would say, I mean, these are beautiful works, is that if there's anything I taught you, it's how to see this within. Because again, there's a lot of psychological triggers around words, and we can get upset, and then we can start getting upset at other things, and there cannot be a solution like that. If you want to get upset, you need to learn how to nourish that and to catalyze it into something that is going to allow you to level out and see yourself, see your behavior, see how you're acting, see the numbers around you, look at your name, and then realize like, okay, I'm in this space. And as I said, many have the avatar story, so you can always lean on that. You put yourself to sleep until you get into these kind of frequencies, and then you wake up to really do something about this. But time draws nigh. What I'm talking about tonight, this is where we're at right now in humanity. We know humanity has elected horrible arbitrators and mediums. So their communication generally with the other world is predatory. These people have linked themselves with predatory beings that just want red rights. And this generally is the spilling of our blood, whether it's poking us or jabbing us, anything that draws blood, this is what they up to. And at the end of the day, I will still have to say that you got to realize that in the code, right? I talked about how Lilith or Lel was in the first generation process. She was the woman that was used to generate some of the first progeny, and that's what became the children or the daughters of Lilith. And then Lel was one of those daughters. And it talks about that even the promiscuous side of woman is connected into this specific frequency or this specific phase, right? And if you think about it in reality, because the word Lilith actually connects to the word lithium, too much lithium is poisonous. Right? Lithium is how Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh was killed. They shot lithium or they overdosed him with lithium, right? So at the same time, though, you can see how the world with everything that's going on needs a little bit of everything, because a little bit of lithium actually fixes depression, all of the problems that go on with the mind, bipolarism, unipolarism, etc. Right? So what is that saying? It's saying so much deep stuff to us. It's even showing us how chemicals can be reorganized and manifested as humans that have spirits that actually equal the chemical that you're looking for. A whole nother variant, maybe more accessible, even beyond the blood-brain barrier, down to the soul-brain-blood barrier. You see what I mean? Like deeper levels of alchem, knowledge and wisdom that generally cannot be fathomed in a space, in a mindset of conflict. Right? So I just want to let everybody know that, yes, this is the times we're doing big things and we're always in the mood to keep going. But also it's important to support. Like it's important to just support yourself and support us in that way. Also, we also have our brother Pierre Sabak. And you can pick up the etymological. This was with the excerpt. So the excerpts I was drawing from today were predominantly 95% from these two works, which have laid it out so well. The knowledge in itself, as you know, is infinite. So it oftentimes takes you to be able to, it's a study. Like even to relate what's being said, it's like, okay, we're reading about this, but how can we relate to it? So I step into the space and then I do the mediating process and I make it relatable so that it makes it very clear to you how the great arcana is applying to you. So this is what we all can do. A lot of this stuff is super potent. And at times it's still very healing. That's why I say like a poison is also the cure, right? But too much of it, you're dead. Too much twerking, too much of the tongue out of the mouth, too much. We're done. A little bit of it, we're not depressed anymore. You see what I mean? It's an organism, so it needs all of this, but it doesn't need too much of anything. It needs to be in balance, right? So it's just a word to the wise. Finally, I will speak on specifically right now. So what's up? What do we do then? One, on the website, Secret Energy, golden intonation is actually free. When you log into Secret Energy for the first time, we give you 360 ohms. You can go right to the checkout and get golden intonation. The tones have been perfectly calibrated. You can hear it yourself. None of the weird stuff going on YouTube, man. I don't listen to YouTube frequencies. As great as it seems and everything, man, I've ended up in some crazy dream spaces listening to some of that stuff. So sound and layering is important. So when something's just clean and just running those octaves, you can hear it. It's just like, you know that, okay, we're organizing. So that collaboration of tones and vibrations is keen to being able to get inside of yourself for one moment. Turn it on, sit there, take some breaths, and stop thinking and just tune into the frequency and let it tune you up a bit, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing also, I want to just make sure everybody knows we're all in this. Rich people, military people, strippers, everybody's in this. This is wild, right? So in that respect, anybody can get it. As far as the delivery and assisting these folks with getting to the next stage, if you know that this is it for them, give it to them. Right? Don't be sitting back there holding a grudge like you the old great judge and the whole everybody. Grudge judge. Judge grudge. You're like, never will they get the secrets. They'll never talk to me again. You know, like, I'll be here forever like that. I got something to do. We could be gliding through infinity. So the last thing also is, okay, this is real on the ground strategic type stuff. If you just ain't about that life, you can hang up right now. But there is something going on in the matrix and folks is tripping. Like, I'm already drawing down the spiritual power to do what I can to assist with the situation, to take it out of a tailspin. Okay, so that's happening. But on the real, we are the magic. That's why we're shaped like a pentagram. It's a occult awareness that humans are the ones responsible for manifesting God's projections. They do it with their hammers, which are their hands. So there's this point where you just got to get in. You got to meet people. You got to get your hands in the dirt, as they call it, and actually make something happen, which would be making the magic happen, right? So in respect to that, I want to bring something forth that just should click to you. As you see, the difference between centralization and decentralization is very, very clear. Centralization is these banks, this cell phone, Amazon. It just means that it's running on something that if that one person decides or that group decides it doesn't want to do it anymore and cuts it off, you don't have it anymore. And if it's what you really needed to sustain yourself, this is a vulnerability. So you need to be sovereign. And sovereignty, for me, in my opinion, starts spiritually, to unconnect yourself from external weirdos, right? God dogs and jealous beings and all this weird stuff, right? And get in tune with yourself. The next level is that you should work towards that when you flip the light switch, that the power that's coming on is being generated by something that you're in control of, like the sun. And then to the point where the food that you're eating, that's being produced through something that you can produce. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and start a farm. What I'm saying is that you need to be able to provide even the farmers around you with something that you're generating, your own resource. Okay. So right now, what I'm also seeing, because that is a process, people cannot do that overnight. When I look at Bitcoin, what I see is like the Pirate Bay. You see how they still trying to shut the Pirate Bay down? But they can't, because it's on every single person's computer. So as long as they choose to use the computer, the Pirate Bay will always be there. That is a big blow to centralization. But the education, I'm not here to talk to you about Bitcoin today. I'm here to talk to you about when you really are making moves, how you have to think things through. You don't think from the bottom up. You think from where you are down to the last morsel that is going to need sustainability. So let me show you how that works. So we know that generally the necessities in life are being produced right now by the people, and they have the most laborious job. That's why we were talking about the earth. They got to carry the load all the time. So when you think about what the biggest necessity is, what we got air, right? Okay, we good. Air looks like, you know, if air don't, none of us gonna get it. We're all done if air go away. So next, water. Okay, well, there's something around that, right? And then so we can secure water. We can clean our water, right? And then the next thing is food. And that's where, you know, as with elements, the more denser they get, you start needing a little bit more in your agreement to be able to remain as a sovereign with that. So when we look at food, it's a necessity. We need it. So then when we look at our farmers, we see that our farmers would not take Bitcoin, right? Because what the farmer needs, he cannot buy with Bitcoin. So that's where that big disconnect is. This is what we call the citadel, that we have to create citadels. We have to create places where there's a decentralized form of transaction that we can exchange what our resources that are essential are with others, right? Now, remember, this is something that's going to happen over time, but I'm saying where to start. Educating farmers, and not educating them, not educating like, oh, I'm going to let you know about Bitcoin. Let me show you about hashtag. No. What we're saying is, first of all, the lead farmer, because there's always a lead farmer. It's on a big farm with a bunch of people working in farming, there's the lead farmer. So the lead farmer, you first go to that lead farmer and you say, what is it that you need, what is it that you're paying the most money for? Okay, what is it that you're paying the most money for? If you ask a lead farmer, it's not the seeds. That makes up about 10% of the cost, because generally the product produces the seeds, even if it's animals. It's not the seeds. It's not the regeneration process. It's the work, the helpers, the people who are picking the crops and planting them and all of that. That's where 60 to 70% of the cost comes from. So right away, you know, then if you can get the people that are working to then take the decentralized currency, the Bitcoin or whatever, now we've eliminated 70% of what this farmer needs money for. So when we make him aware or her aware of the power of being decentralized, we can say, look, I'll give you 70% Bitcoin. I'm just showing you how it really would have to work. I'll give you 70% Bitcoin or the decentralized currency, and I'll give you 30% fiat or whatever the centralized, whatever it is, so you can still stay alive and do what you pay your rent and all the stuff that's still connected to that as you yourself are getting ready to unplug from the whole thing, because we got to unplug now. It's contaminated. They're not, that's not the ones to trust. They never have been. But what is the solution? So now then you got to keep going though. Now this farmer, why is he going to take the farmer, the guy that's down there getting their hands in the dirt, the woman that's down there picking the fruit? Why are they going to take this stuff? What do they need? And this is where we got to be in life right now. We got to be down there, if you may, saying, what do you need? What are you spending money on? When he gives you money, what are you spending money on? And then be able to supply that to them. So they also, so now you have that one part is fortified. It's completely decentralized. We have food in a decentralized currency. And this is now it, because until that happens, it's all speculation, really, as much as it could really be. And this is like, it's only a doorway. Like if we don't want to go through craziness, because they cut the money off. You can act as nice as you want to right now, but they cut the money off and people don't understand what's really happening. It's not just that maybe you won't get a UBI check. It's that the streets, that other side, nighttime, the moon cannot survive without it. And so if we're not ready to transition them off of it, what we would have is instability. You would have a rift between, there would be no more middle class. It would be the rich, the billionaires, if you may, and the poor under UBI. And they would be separated even geologically. Oh, you can't get in that country. You got 9 shots to take. You see what I mean? And all this would sound like a conspiracy like 10 years ago when we were talking about this. But now it's actually happening. So now we're explaining, look, I'm not irrational. I know all this stuff that we've been talking about tonight is on a whole nother level, and you may have a hard time believing these things, but the simple stuff, I spend time with that too. And I'm telling you that we need to think about what our necessities are. Also, what is our necessity? Power. So how do we generate power? Solar panels. Can you get solar panels with Bitcoin? Yes. Right now, still through who though? Amazon. Oh man. Oh, well, we back with him again. So, and then notice how you're getting played. For y'all divine masculine, which is inside of every female too. These guys took off with the Amazon. My brother J-Ro bought this up. I was like, J-Ro, boy, you Jason Rollinson, man, like out of all of that, absorb the knowledge of the message and synthesize and come out with their own spin. Him. He says, yo, I was mentioning how, they flying up in the sky. Here's what the symbolism is with that. And then, how this is tampering with the divine feminine because they're saying they conquered the sky. This is what they're saying, that they going to make a push now for the queen, right? And then he said, and then how you even know is that they're flying off in the world. How they got their riches is through two companies, primarily. Virgin, you can't make it more clear than that. I mean, Branson's clearly working with this Venusian Venus thing forever with the flight attendants, right? So that's the divine feminine force and power. And then if you just was thinking somebody making this up, then you go over to Elon, or not Elon yet, but Bezos. And who does he got? Amazon. Who are the Amazons? Man, come on, man. Come on, Wonder Woman. Who are the Amazons, right? So he's like, man, Sevan, you full of it, man. You're just making this stuff up. Who was the other guy? Who was the other billionaire that's a little late to the takeoff? Who is that? That's Elon. Oh, okay, see, we got Elon. Who's he got as a goddess? He ain't talking about no goddess. Yeah. He got that Dogecoin. He's saying Dogecoin to the moon, Dogecoin to Mars. What are they talking about? Now you know. Now you know in the symbolism. Now you see the priestcrafts. See, it's symbolic. It's not just them. It's not just Elon. That's just the face that they're choosing as the mediator behind the energy from the priestcraft. So when they shoot up their rocket, that's symbolic. This is like you're already firing out the firework. Hold on, man. I ain't in the bag yet. They giving, at this point, they think it's in the bag. And you know what? That's the perfect time for the disappointment. This is where the greatest lessons are learned in life. When you think you're going to steal everything and then somehow succeed that way, and it just doesn't work out, just as a lesson, right? We need to be giving. So, and because it's always better to give than receive. If you have the funkendating component and it can, that means you're the initiator of the turning of the wheel. That's why they got so many people in their clutches, because people are expecting, give me a little money, give me a little stimulus, and they won't go figure it out themselves. How do I keep my necessities first? Let me become a sovereign on the spiritual plane first, because then as above, so below. Then from there, I'm going to start regulating with my magic and untie myself from these weavers' webs, right? Get the knots out so they're back in their place. And then I'm going to glide into a frequency and a harmonic that I don't even whatever they're doing, it doesn't even affect my fields and the fields of my children and the fields of those that I love and I care for. In meantime, while they're doing that, let it be a lesson to them. They are suffering. This stuff that they done, you knew it all. There was other times you knew what they were doing. It's like deep stuff that's happened that people didn't really understand what was going on. Like what happened with Epstein. And how it shows that the cabal has been working on blackmailing every leader in the world by getting them to do something that is so horrid, thinking that they're going to be initiated in closer into this priestcraft when really they get videotapes and stuff of them doing things and being a certain way that if we're ever released, they would be finished anyway. So grabbing onto their own lives, they are told to do certain things and they just do it because they don't want those tapes released with that woman that they had run off with, or that goat they slept with when they got drugged, or whatever else they got for them, just to keep them under that kind of pressure. And this is psychological, right? And you can be tearing them up. I'm going to tell your wife about this, what you was doing. We had cameras of you on. You see, so this is the game being played. Meanwhile, you're here. You, the most glorious, magnificent, beautiful being. Are you going to get your whole thing canceled from what you can become because you never figured this out and what's going on, and you stay dependent on this, thinking that this is all that there really is, and getting fooled and not taking your power and your knowledge, not realizing still you need to be mature to understand these beings and what's going on and what happened in the past with our ancestors and the elders, how again they make mistakes, and then how, that's got to be cleaned up, and then how we're here to do that because it's them through us. That's why this stuff right here, man, when I be looking at this stuff, I was like, man, it's like sometimes they be even calling my name. I'm like, man, how does this work? Am I even alive? Is everybody else even alive? I mean, am I just in a simulator that is trying to make me think that somehow I'm responsible for this too? And he say, well, yeah, Sevan, you're the creator. I was like, oh yeah. See, so it's convenient to accept the creator thing when it's gone well. You just want to take, oh, that's my boy right there. That, look at her, but when they acting and they clowning, oh no, I don't know. I don't know them. So it's like that whole kind of behavior, this is what we're growing beyond. So that's it. That's what we got today. This was an amazing build. I feel like personally, as we keep going forward, I would just say to anyone that needs the whole palette of it, come into the space. I wanted to say wholeness and balance vibration also to the tribe and being able to deliver this message to YouTube. For those that kept writing out, let's see where we ended up. Oh man, we ended up higher than I was. Man, how does that happen? Y'all some late night Friday Venus action. Saturday Saturn head, you know what I mean? But serious, you can't escape these things. You either harmonize them and bring absolution or stay in debt, right? Which is guilt. So wholeness and balance vibrations, tribe, I'll unmute these mics for that grand crescendo of wholeness going across the space. It was amazing to be up in here and to be able to transmute. Incredible. Thank you. Wholeness.
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 Thank you. 10 and 11. So grateful. Much gratitude. Wholeness and
Go
balance
people going.
all of you.
Wholeness.
Wholeness and balance vibrations, family. Thank you, son. I love you.
Wholeness.
Wholeness
So
and
much
balance
Beautiful
vibration.
faces, beautiful souls.
Wholeness
Yeah.
all.
Yes.
We love
gratitude.
We love weed. Gratitude.
Hey, we love weed. I love it.
We love weed.
Bringing that fire.